Hello friends, welcome to Shadow Whisperer. All you see is darkness, just the sound of rain. Designed to help you relax, focus on the story, and drift into sleep. But before you do, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And yes, feel free to share where you're listening from in the comments. Now, let's begin. My name is Marley Keene. I'm 28 years old, and I teach graphic design at Brighton College. It's a pretty cool job, I think. I get to help young people make art. I love seeing their ideas come to life. It's a real good feeling. We work with colors and shapes. We make things that tell stories. I also run an art page online. It's not super famous or anything. Just a place where I share my drawings. My own little corner of the internet. But I like sharing my drawings there. It's a nice way to connect. People leave comments. Sometimes they ask about my art. Sometimes they just say nice things. It makes me feel good. I live by myself in an apartment. It's on the 3rd floor. The building is old, but it has character. Brick walls and big windows. My window looks out over the street. I can see the park from here. My town is Kingsley Heights. It's a quiet place, just south of Pittsburgh. Nothing much ever happens here. It's the kind of town where everyone knows everyone, or used to. That's what I used to think anyway. Before everything changed, before my whole world turned upside down, before I knew the truth. The first strange thing was really small. It happened on a Tuesday morning. The sun was just starting to peek through my window. It made long shadows. It stretched across my bedroom floor. A new day was starting. I stretched in bed. My muscles felt a little stiff. I must have slept in a weird way. I yawned wide. I grabbed my phone from my nightstand. It felt cool in my hand. I opened up Instagram just like always. I saw a lot of new likes. My heart gave a little jump. That's always a nice feeling. It was on a picture I posted last week. It was from the college art show. I was smiling in the photo. There were pretty string lights all around me. They twinkled and made everything feel warm. It was a good night. I remember feeling happy that night, proud of my students' work. They had worked so hard. Their art was really good. I had written a caption for it. Something simple and sweet. It said, "Annual Student Art Show. Proud of my kids." But now, the words under the picture were all wrong. I never wrote them. My stomach dropped a little. What was going on? It said, "In loving memory of Marley Keene, 1996 to 2024. My eyes jumped over the words again. 1996 to 2024. That was my birth year. And this year, this very year. I stared at the screen. My heart started to beat a little faster. It felt like a drum in my chest. A cold feeling started to spread. From my chest to my fingers, my hands felt suddenly numb, like they weren't mine. There were so many comments, hundreds of them, maybe even more. I scrolled down, my thumb shaking a little. Each one felt like a punch. Each word was a shock, a tiny electric jolt. Some people wrote nice things, like, "So sorry, she was such a light." They thought I was a girl, which was weird. But the sadness felt real. "She touched so many lives," one said. "A true artist." Another one wrote, "Gone too soon. The world lost a bright soul." Others were confused. They asked, "This isn't funny. Is she okay?" Their questions felt like a lifeline. Like maybe they knew something I didn't. Like maybe this was all just a big mistake. A bad joke. But most of the comments were really sad. They seemed to know for sure. They seemed to know that I was gone, like it was a fact. "Rest in peace, Marley," one said. "We'll miss you." Someone else wrote, "I can't believe it. Just saw her last week." I blinked hard, trying to clear my head. Maybe I was still half asleep. Maybe I was dreaming. A really bad dream. I swiped down on the screen to refresh the app. I hoped it was a glitch. The post was still there. It didn't go away. It just sat there. It was staring back at me, mocking me almost. My hands felt clammy. My mouth was dry. I swallowed hard. My throat felt tight and sore. I went back to my main profile page. My bio used to say something about art, something about my passion for drawing, my love for teaching. Now it said, "Remembering a soul taken too soon." And my profile picture? It was my face, but it was black and white. My eyes were closed in the photo. like I was sleeping. But it wasn't a peaceful sleep. It looked final, like I was lying in a coffin, my face pale and still. It looked like a picture from a funeral program. I thought, okay, someone hacked me. That was the first thing. It had to be a prank, a really mean one, but still a prank. Of course, I thought it was a joke. Who would do something like this? Who would be so cruel? My mind raced, but the more I looked, the more it just didn't feel like a prank. It felt different, like it was too real to be fake, like it was meant to be true. And that scared me. Whoever did this knew a lot about me. Too much. They knew my passwords. All of them. Even the secret ones. The ones I thought were super safe. The ones I never wrote down. They had access to my online storage. That's where I keep my photos. All my personal pictures, pictures of my family, my friends, pictures from my childhood, my vacations, my whole life. They even had pictures of me that I hadn't shared with anyone yet. Pictures I had taken just for myself, or for my mom, like a selfie I took last week just messing around, or a picture of my messy art studio just for fun. And this was the scariest part. The pictures were changing. Photos I had posted before, like me smiling in a coffee shop, the steam from my mug curling up, my favorite place, the warm light on my face, a happy memory, or me standing on the beach last summer, happy memories, the sun warm on my skin, the ocean roaring softly. Now, they looked wrong. My skin was pale, like a ghost. It had a blue tint to it, like I was cold or something worse, like I had been underwater for a long time, or left out in the snow. My eyes were sometimes rolled back in my head. It made me feel sick. In one picture, I swore I saw faint bruises. They were around my neck, like someone had grabbed me, or choked me. Dark marks against my pale skin. They stood out. A shiver went down my spine. My stomach churned. I felt like throwing up, like my insides were twisting. My whole body felt cold, even though the room was warm. I quickly deleted everything, every single post, every single photo. I wanted it all gone. I wanted to erase what I saw. I clicked and clicked. My fingers flew across the screen. I deleted my whole history, every trace of my online life. Then I changed all my passwords, every single one. I made them super hard to guess, long and complicated. I used random letters and numbers, symbols too. I even used a password generator, just to be safe. But it didn't work. The weird posts kept coming back. They popped up again, almost instantly, like magic. Like they were tied to me, like they were part of me, like they were something I couldn't escape. It was like a bad dream, one I couldn't wake up from, no matter how hard I tried, no matter what I did. I closed my phone. I threw it on the bed. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling. My heart was still pounding. I tried to tell myself it was a prank, a really, really bad one. But deep down, a cold fear was growing, a feeling of dread. The next day, a friend from work sent me a message. Her name is Sarah. She teaches art history. We often talked about our classes, shared funny stories. We'd grab coffee sometimes. She was a good friend. Marley? Is this a joke? I saw the news post. What the fuck? Her words were all in capital letters. She sounded scared. Her message buzzed my phone. It felt like a warning, a loud, urgent alarm going off in my hand. What news post? I had no idea what she was talking about. My hand started to shake again. This was getting worse. Each new thing was a step deeper into something dark, something I didn't understand, something terrifying. She sent me a picture of it. It was a screenshot. It looked like a memorial article, like an obituary, but fake. It was from a website I had never heard of. The title was chilling. It said, "Art teacher dies after tragic fall from window." My blood ran cold. My own window, my own building. It had a picture of my apartment building. It showed my window, the one I was looking out of right now, the one with the tiny crack in the corner. I knew it well. It had my real age, my job, my birthday. Everything was right. My full name, my college, my hometown. Even my favorite coffee shop was mentioned. But I was alive, very much alive. I was sitting right there, breathing. My heart was still beating, even if it felt too fast. I could feel the blood rushing through my veins. I was real. I pinched myself hard. just to be sure. It hurt. I picked up my phone and called the police. My hands were shaking, my voice felt tight in my throat. It was hard to speak clearly. "Someone's putting out fake news about me," I stammered. "They're saying I'm dead. It's everywhere." They were nice enough on the phone, but they weren't really helpful. "Sounds like someone stole your identity," the officer said. His voice was calm. Too calm. Like he heard this every day, like it was just a normal Tuesday for him. Or maybe it's a very big troll. He chuckled a little. I didn't find it funny. Not at all. There was nothing funny about it. I felt a surge of anger. Didn't he understand? He told me to call the cyber crimes department. So I did. I filed a report with them. I told them everything, from the Instagram posts to the fake news article. I explained how my pictures were changing, how real it felt, how it felt like my life was being taken from me. They took down all the details. They said they'd look into it. But nothing changed. In fact, it just got worse. The posts kept appearing, the articles multiplied, new ones popped up every hour, each one more detailed. By Thursday, my phone stopped making any noise. No buzzing, no new messages, no notifications at all. It was just silent. It felt heavy in my hand, like a dead weight, like it was just a piece of plastic, not connected to anything. I tried to open Instagram and Twitter. Both apps just showed an error. It said, "User not found," like I didn't exist on them anymore. My online life, just gone. Like smoke. Like I had never been there. Like I was erased. My digital footprint, wiped clean. Emails I sent didn't go anywhere. They bounced back to me. Every message I tried to send. Every time. Delivery failed, the message would say. Recipient not found. It was like my email address was gone too. Like I was gone. I tried to call my mom. She didn't answer her phone. I called her 5 times, 6 times, nothing. Her voicemail picked up. Her voice sounded so far away. "Hi, it's Janet. Leave a message." Her happy voice. Then I called the school, the main office number. The person who answered hesitated when I said my name. "Marley Keene," I said. My voice was a little shaky. "I teach graphic design." I tried to sound normal. She said, "I thought you were, can you hold?" Her voice was quiet. It was strange. Like she was talking about a ghost. Like she was talking about someone who wasn't there. Then the line just went dead. She hung up on me. I called back right away. My heart was pounding. My fingers fumbled with the numbers. I had to get through. But it just disconnected. Like my number didn't work anymore. Like it was a deadline. Like I was a dead person. It was like I was being erased, one piece at a time, from my online life, from my friends, from my family, from my job, from everything that made me, me. I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach, a heavy, dark stone. I walked to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water. My hand shook so much the water sloshed over the rim. I tried to watch TV. Nothing felt real. The news was on, a local story about a missing cat. I tried to focus, to pretend everything was normal, but it wasn't. Nothing was normal anymore. I decided to go to the college in person. It was Friday morning. I had to know what was happening. I had to see for myself. I had to prove I was real. I had to prove I was alive. Maybe if I showed my face, they'd believe me. I walked up to the gate. The sun was bright, but I felt cold. A chill ran through me, like a shadow had passed over. I pulled out my ID card, ready to swipe it, but it didn't work. The little light stayed red. It beeped sadly, like it was telling me no, like it didn't know me. The security guard looked at me with a blank face. He didn't know who I was. He just stared through me, like I was invisible. His eyes were empty, like he was looking at nothing. I waved my hand in front of his face. He didn't blink. I somehow managed to get inside the building. I just walked past him. He didn't stop me. He didn't even seem to see me. It was like I was a ghost already, floating through the halls. Students walked right past me. Their backpacks brushed through my arm. I felt nothing. No touch. No warmth. I went straight to my office. My hands were clammy. My stomach was a knot. I felt sick with dread, It was locked, and there was someone else's name on the door. Not mine. A new name. A new art teacher. Mr. David Chen, the sign read. His name was neatly printed. I could hear voices inside. Someone was working in my office. My space, my life. It was like I had been wiped away, like I was never there, like my whole life at the college was just a dream, or even worse, like someone had taken my place, like I was a bad memory, or a bad joke. I stood there for a long time, just staring at the door. My office, my life, gone. Just like that. The hallway was busy. Students walked past me. They laughed and talked. They didn't see me. They walked around me, like I was just air. I felt a deep ache in my chest, a hollow, empty feeling, a crushing weight, like my heart was gone too. I tried to call out to Sarah, my friend. "Sarah!" I yelled, but my voice felt thin. She walked right by. She was talking to another teacher. They didn't even glance my way. It was like I wasn't there. I walked through the art studio. My students were there. They were drawing, painting, making art. They were using the same tools I taught them to use. My heart ached. I wanted to help them, to teach them, but they didn't see me. They didn't hear me. I reached out to touch a student's drawing. My hand passed through it, like smoke, like it wasn't real. I felt a wave of despair, a cold, heavy blanket. I left the college. My feet felt heavy. The sun was still bright outside, but my world was dark. I walked aimlessly for a while, just putting one foot in front of the other. I passed my favorite coffee shop, the one from the picture. I saw a couple sitting at my usual table, laughing. I tried to open the door. My hand passed through the handle. I felt a strange tingling, like static electricity. I tried again, and again. Nothing. I was locked out of my own life, my own world. I saw my reflection in the coffee shop window. It was faint, like a ghost, wavering. I blinked. It was gone. Just the street behind me. My heart hammered in my chest. This was getting worse. Every minute, something else was taken from me. That night, back in my apartment, the lights started to flicker. All of them. Not just one light bulb. Every single light. The lamp in the living room, the kitchen light, the bedroom light. They pulsed in sync, like a heartbeat, on and off, on and off. The whole room went dark, then bright, then dark again. It was like the apartment was breathing, a slow, heavy breath, like it was alive, and I was not. My phone turned itself on. It was lying on the coffee table. The screen flashed black and white, like an old TV, with bad reception, full of static. My Photos app opened by itself. It started cycling through my pictures, me at the beach, my hair messy from the wind, my arm around my friend, smiling, a happy, real memory. But the colors were fading, the edges blurred, me in my bed, sleeping, a picture I never took. My face was peaceful, but too still, too pale. The blue tint was stronger now, almost purple. Me cooking dinner in my kitchen, a normal, everyday moment, chopping vegetables, the stove light on, but the knife was blurry. My hands looked like shadows. Then, a new picture popped up. My breath caught in my throat. It was me, standing at my window, the one in my living room. But the picture was taken from behind me, from inside my apartment. Someone was in here with me. I wasn't holding my phone when that picture was taken. I know I wasn't. My phone was on the coffee table. I was alone. Or I thought I was. My blood ran cold. I dropped the phone. It clattered on the floor. My hands were shaking so hard. My whole body trembled. My knees felt weak. I wanted to run, but the screen kept scrolling through the pictures. It was like a horror movie, and I was the star. I couldn't look away. My eyes were glued to the screen. Then one final image appeared. My blood ran cold. It was me. I was sprawled on the sidewalk outside my building. My eyes were wide open, staring up at nothing. They were glassy, empty, and there was blood. It trailed from my temple, a dark, sticky stain on the concrete, spreading slowly. My head was twisted at an odd angle. My body looked broken. My arm was bent at a strange angle. My legs were twisted. I screamed. It was a loud, raw sound. It tore from my chest, a sound of pure terror, of disbelief. I ran out of my apartment. I pounded on my neighbor's door. My neighbor, Mrs. Miller, she always brings me cookies. She has a little dog named Buster. He barks at everything. I was crying and yelling for help. My voice was hoarse. Mrs. Miller, please, you have to help me. It's Marley. Something's wrong. I just needed someone to believe me, someone to see me, someone to tell me this wasn't real, that I was okay. She opened the door. She looked at me. Her eyes went wide. Her face went pale, like she had seen a ghost. Buster, her dog, didn't bark. He just whimpered and hid behind her legs. He looked terrified, his tail tucked tight. Then she screamed, a high, sharp sound. It pierced the air. No, this isn't real, she cried. You died last week. Her words hit me like a physical blow. They echoed in my ears, like a hammer striking an anvil, loud and clear. She slammed the door shut. I heard the lock click. I stood there, frozen. The hallway lights flickered. My world was crumbling, piece by piece. I didn't stay in my apartment. I couldn't. Not after that. Not after seeing my own dead body. Not after Mrs. Miller's scream. I ran down the stairs. My feet barely touched the steps. I ran out into the night. The air was cold. I went to a motel that night, just a cheap one on the edge of town, the kind with a blinking neon sign and thin walls, the kind of place you go when you have nowhere else to go. I was all alone in the room. The silence was deafening, except for the sound of my own ragged breathing and the pounding of my heart, a frantic drum. I couldn't sleep. I just stayed awake, staring at the ceiling. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw things, flickering images, not just pictures, but whole scenes. I saw myself in caskets, different flowers, white lilies, red roses, all wilting. People were mourning, crying, their faces blurry with tears. My mom, Sarah, even Mr. Chen, the new art teacher. They looked so sad, so real. I saw articles about my funeral. Each one was different dates, different churches, but always my name. Beloved teacher laid to rest. Community mourns Marley Keene. One showed a picture of my mom, crying. Her face was swollen. My phone was still on the floor of my apartment. I had left it there. I was too scared to pick it up, too scared of what I'd see. But I remembered the last text message I had sent myself. It was just a few words. It simply read, "You're already dead. Stop pretending." The words burned in my mind, a cold, hard truth. They echoed in the empty motel room, over and over, like a broken record, playing the same terrible song. Saturday morning, I checked out of the motel early. I just needed to walk. I needed to clear my head, to make sense of it all. The air was cool. The sky was gray. It matched my mood, a heavy, thick gray, like a blanket. I walked to the public library. It felt like the only safe place left, a place with books, with answers, with reality. Maybe I could find something there, some explanation. I sat down at a computer. The screen glowed in the dim room. I Googled my name, Marley Keene. My fingers trembled on the keyboard. There were 5 obituary articles, 5 different ones, each one detailing a different death, a different ending. One said I had been found drowned in a lake. That lake was 2 hours away, Lake Willow. I had never even been there, not once. Another article claimed I had been killed in a car crash, a hit and run on a highway I rarely drove on, Route 19. The car was a red sedan. The details were so specific. One even had a picture of my face in a funeral home. My eyes were closed. My skin looked waxy. My hair was neatly combed. I looked peaceful, too peaceful, like a doll. Each death was different, but each one had my face, my name, my real information, my birthday, my job. How was this even possible? My mind raced. It felt like it would break. Was it some deep, dark part of the internet? A trap? A hidden corner where reality twisted and broke apart? Was it a cyberstalker, someone really messed up? Someone who wanted to hurt me in the cruelest way possible? Or was it a cult? A group of people doing this to me? Playing some sick game with my life? My death? I didn't know. I had no answers. Just more questions. My head throbbed. My chest felt tight. I felt like I was drowning, in a sea of lies and shadows. I closed the browser. I stood up from the computer. I had to get out. I had to walk. I had to think. The library felt too small, too quiet. But then, on my walk back to the motel, I passed a glass shop front. It was a small store, full of shiny, colorful things, glass sculptures, vases, little trinkets. I looked into the window, and I saw nothing. No reflection, not my face, not my body, nothing. Just the empty sidewalk behind me, like I wasn't even there, like I was a ghost, a shadow, a ripple in the air. My breath hitched, my heart stopped. For a second, I stopped walking. My feet felt heavy, like they were rooted to the ground. I couldn't move. I turned my whole body. I faced the glass directly. I was still standing there. I was breathing. I could feel my chest move. My heart was beating. I could feel the thrum. But still, no reflection. The glass was just empty where I should have been. I held up my hand. I wiggled my fingers. Nothing moved in the glass. No hand, no fingers, just the brick wall across the street. And a passing car. It was right then that I felt it. A strange, hollow thrum in my chest. A cold feeling behind my eyes, like ice water. My heartbeat felt slow. Too slow, like it was fading away, like a dying ember, just a faint glow. I looked around. The birds on the sidewalk didn't fly away. They didn't even flutter when I stepped close to them. They just pecked at crumbs, unbothered. The wind blew, but it didn't move my hair. It just passed through me, like I was made of air, like I wasn't solid, like I was a dream, or a memory. I reached for my phone. My hand was trembling so much. It felt heavy, but also distant, like it wasn't mine, like I was holding someone else's phone. I opened the camera app. I turned it to the front-facing camera. No face, just static, like an old TV screen. Gray fuzz, white noise, nothing. And then, words appeared on the screen. They glowed, a sickly green light. They floated there, clear as day, burning into my mind. Now you understand. We weren't hacking you. We were preparing the world for what already happened. The words sank into me, cold, hard, true. They were like a final blow. The last piece of the puzzle. I didn't believe it. I refused to. I shook my head hard. No, this wasn't real. It couldn't be. I was alive. I was standing here. I was breathing. I started walking again. I walked straight to the police station. I needed help. Real help. Not just a phone call. I needed someone to see me. Someone to touch me. But it wasn't there. Not anymore. Just a big construction site. Piles of dirt and metal. A chain-link fence surrounded it. A sign said, "Future Development," where the police station used to be. My mind reeled. I tried to ask someone walking by, an old man with a dog. I opened my mouth to speak. My voice felt thin, like a whisper, like it wasn't even there. They just ignored me. They walked right past me. The old man looked straight ahead. His dog wagged its tail. The dog didn't even bark. It just sniffed the air. It didn't see me. It didn't smell me. I screamed. My voice felt thin, like it wasn't real, like it was just a whisper, a ghost of a sound. No one turned. No one looked. A woman walked right through me. Through my body, I felt a chill, like a sudden draft, like I was fog, like I was just a memory, not a person. She didn't even flinch. She kept walking. Her purse brushed through my arm. I felt nothing. I returned home, broken, sobbing. I couldn't stop the tears. They felt cold on my cheeks, like they weren't even mine, like they were just dewdrops, not real tears. The apartment door was open. I just pushed it gently. It swung inward with a soft creak. Inside, it was cold and dark. A strange, heavy silence hung in the air. The air felt thick, like it was holding its breath, like the apartment was waiting for me. And on the floor, in the middle of my living room, was my body. It was pale, so pale, like all the color had drained out, like a wax figure, not a living person. There were bruises on my neck, dark, ugly marks, like someone had gripped me tight, left their mark. It was dead, my own body, lying there. My eyes were open, staring up at the ceiling. They looked empty, lifeless, staring at nothing. Above me, the window was shattered. Glass was everywhere. Tiny shards glittered on the floor, like fallen stars. They crunched under my feet as I floated closer, and carved into the wood near the windowsill a sentence. It looked freshly cut. The wood was splintered. The letters were rough, like someone had carved them in a hurry. It said, "Sometimes you die alone, but the world needs time to notice." I think I slipped that first night. After seeing those weird changed photos on my phone, I panicked. I leaned too far out the window. Maybe I was trying to get some air, to clear my head, to escape the horror on my screen. Or maybe I was pushed. By what? Or by who? I may never know the answer, but now I just linger, in the in-between, a place between life and death, between real and not real. I read my own obituaries online, over and over, each one a different story, each one a lie, and yet, true. They are my only proof, my only record. I haunt my digital past, my old posts, my old pictures, the ones that started it all, the ones that changed. I see my old self, smiling, laughing, alive. I'm just one of millions, maybe. People who never noticed. People who never noticed the moment it ended. People who kept living, even after they died, but who watched the world be slowly rewritten without them, watched their lives fade, watched their memories change. And I'm still here, still watching, still waiting. Waiting for what? I don't know. For someone to see me? For the world to finally catch up? To truly let me go? The silence is the loudest thing now. The silence of not being seen. The silence of not being heard. The silence of being gone. But still here. Always here. They always say no job is ever truly easy, not the kind of work Reno and I do anyway, but this one looked like a walk in the park. It really did. My name's Cole Stan. I'm 32 years old. I've been doing these low-level break-ins, B&Es, ever since I was 19. Nothing big or flashy, just tool sheds, empty cabins, houses in the suburbs where no one was home. Me and my partner, Reno, we never got greedy. We never hurt a single soul. Just in, grab what we could, sell it off, and disappear. That was our way. But this job, this one damn house, it changed everything for me. It changed everything. It changed how I saw the world. It changed how I saw myself. It took away the sleep from my nights. It put a cold, heavy feeling in my chest that hasn't left since. It all started with a tip. It came from a guy Reno knew, a real shaky dude named Gerald. Gerald was a tweaker, always looking for a quick buck. He had eyes that darted around like scared mice. He swore on his mother's grave that this was the easiest score ever. A real gold mine, he called it. He said there was this really old house, a colonial one, out near the edge of a town called San Minar. The owner's name was Anna Mae Cunning. She was an old lady, living all by herself, no kids, no family around. And the big thing, no alarms, not a single one. The rumor was this woman had gotten a huge fortune from her husband after he passed away. Gerald said she was a recluse, a fancy word for someone who just stays inside all the time. He said she was probably half blind, half deaf, and wouldn't even know we were there. "It's an easy in, Cole," Reno said, a wide grin on his face. He was driving, his hands tight on the wheel. His eyes were shining, like a kid on Christmas morning. He loved these jobs, maybe a little too much. No neighbors close by. She's a hoarder too, apparently. Could be gold in there, like real gold. I should have just said no. I really should have. My gut was already twisting. It was a cold, tight knot right in my stomach. But Reno was already buzzing, talking about what we'd buy, where we'd go. He talked about a new car, a fancy one. He talked about a vacation, somewhere warm. I just nodded, trying to push down the bad feeling, trying to make it go away. I told myself it was just nerves, just the usual pre-job jitters. The drive out to San Minar felt longer than usual. The sun was setting, bleeding orange and purple across the sky. The road got smaller and smaller, turning into a winding path through thick woods. Every tree looked the same, dark and tall, like silent watchers. Reno kept talking, but his voice sounded far away. I kept looking out the window. The woods pressed in close, making the air feel heavy and old. It was like we were driving into a different time, a place forgotten by the world. The house just sat there, like a rotten tooth. It was stuck between two big, leafless oak trees. They looked like giant skeletal hands reaching up to the gray sky. The paint was peeling off the walls like old skin flaking away. It looked so sad. It was a dark, bruised purple color, faded and chipped, almost black in the dim light. A rusty fence leaned over, all crooked. It looked like no one cared about it, not one bit. The gate hung open, swinging a little in the weak breeze, like a broken jaw. There were no lights on anywhere, no sound at all. Just a thick fog pressing in from the woods, making everything blurry. It was a heavy, wet fog that smelled like damp earth and dead leaves. And a stillness. A quietness that made me start to sweat under my jacket. It wasn't just quiet. It was a deep, heavy silence. The kind that feels like it's watching you. We parked the car a good distance away, hidden by some thick bushes. The engine died, and the silence swallowed us whole. The air in the car felt thick, too, like we were holding our breath. Reno finally turned off the radio. Even his humming stopped. He looked at me, his grin gone, replaced by a tight line. "Ready, Cole?" he whispered. His voice was barely a sound. I just nodded. My mouth was dry, like I'd been chewing on sand. My hands felt cold and clammy, even inside my gloves. Then we walked through the tall, wet grass, heading for the back of the house. Each step made a soft swishing sound, like something whispering in the dark. The air was cold and damp. I could feel it seeping into my bones. It was a chill that went deeper than just the skin. It felt like it was chilling my very soul. I pulled my collar up higher, but it didn't help. Nothing seemed to help. Reno was humming a little tune again, trying to act normal, but I could see his shoulders were tight. The fog got thicker as we got closer. It wrapped around us like a cold, wet blanket. I could barely see Reno in front of me, just a blurry shape. The house loomed up, a darker shadow in the gray mist. We cut through the back of the yard. The weeds were up to my knees. They were thick and tangled, grabbing at my pants, trying to trip me. The ground was uneven, hidden by the fog, and I almost stumbled a few times. I pulled out my tools. The cold metal felt heavy in my hand. The flashlight beam cut a narrow path through the fog, making everything else disappear. I jimmied the lock on the back door. It barely made a sound, just a soft click. It was an old lock, easy to pick. Too easy, almost. My fingers trembled slightly as I worked the pick. The door creaked open. It was a loud, drawn-out sound, like a long, sad scream. It echoed in the heavy silence, making me jump. Reno jumped too. He shot me a look, his eyes wide. Still, no lights came on. No dog started barking. No one shouted. The house just swallowed the sound. It felt like it was holding its breath. We were in. Just like that. My heart was thumping hard in my chest. It always did at this point. But this time it felt different. It felt wrong. It wasn't the usual rush of adrenaline. It was a cold, creeping dread, like walking into a place where you just knew you weren't supposed to be, like stepping into a dream that was slowly turning into a nightmare. Every shadow seemed to stretch and twist, like something alive. The air inside felt even colder than outside, a deep, bone-chilling cold. The smell hit me first. It was heavy, thick, mold for sure. It was everywhere, clinging to everything, a damp, earthy smell. And something else. Something like rotting meat. It was a sickly, sweet smell, like something had died a long time ago and was still decaying. Maybe cat pee too. It was layers and layers of old, bad smells. They mixed together, making my stomach churn. It was hard to breathe. Dust hung in the air, clinging to the walls like dirty fur. It made my nose itch. It was so thick, you could almost see it, swirling in the faint light from our flashlights. Inside, it was even worse than I thought it would be. It looked like the house had just given up, like it stopped trying to be neat many years ago. Piles of junk were everywhere, old magazines, some with yellowed pages, others with torn covers, creepy porcelain dolls with chipped faces, their empty eyes staring out from the shadows, tiny teacups, delicate and dusty, stacked precariously on wobbly tables, yellowing papers stacked so high they almost touched the ceiling, letters, newspapers, old bills. The hallways weren't really hallways. They were like mazes, made of old furniture pushed together. Broken chairs, overturned lamps, dressers with missing drawers. You had to squeeze through them. It was dark and tight. Everywhere I looked, there was just more junk, more clutter. It felt like the house was suffocating, like it was choking on its own past, on all the things it had collected. My flashlight beam picked out strange shapes in the gloom. A broken rocking horse, a stack of old, dusty board games, a bird cage with no bird. But there was something else. Something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Something wrong. It was a feeling, deep down. It wasn't just the smell or the darkness. It was something deeper, colder. I couldn't place it yet, but it made the hairs on my arms stand up. It was like the house itself was alive, watching us, waiting. A prickling sensation on the back of my neck. Reno nudged me with his elbow. His flashlight beam was low, just a thin line of light. He was trying to be quiet, but I could hear his breathing, a little too fast. "Split up, Cole," he whispered. His voice was a little shaky, even his. "Sweep for anything valuable. You know, jewelry, silverware, any old antique junk." He pointed his light towards what looked like a living room, buried under more stuff. I just nodded. My mouth felt dry. I wanted to say something, anything, to stop us, to turn back. But the words wouldn't come. My throat felt tight, closed off. Then I stepped into the darkness, deeper into the house's guts. My boots crunched on something underfoot. I didn't look down. Every shadow seemed to deepen, to grow longer as I moved. The air felt heavier with each step, like a physical weight on my chest. I had barely been in there for 5 minutes. My flashlight beam cut through the gloom. It danced over dusty curtains, cobweb-covered picture frames, and more piles of junk. Then I saw something. It made my pulse jump in my neck, a jewelry box. It was small, black velvet. It sat right there on an old vanity. The vanity had a dusty lace cover on it. It looked like something a little girl would have. It looked so out of place. The lace was yellowed and torn, but the box itself seemed almost new. Reno was close by, just a few feet away. I motioned to him with my head. He was still rummaging through a pile of old clothes, muttering to himself. I whispered, "Jackpot." My voice was just a breath. His head snapped up, his eyes catching the faint glint of the box. He grinned. It was a quick, excited flash of teeth in the dark. His eyes were fixed on the box, gleaming with greed. "Careful though, Cole," he whispered back. "Might have a simple lock on it. You know, to trick you." He took a step closer, his own flashlight beam joining mine on the velvet box. I reached out my hand. My fingers brushed the cold velvet. It felt soft, almost inviting, a strange contrast to the rest of the house. I flipped the lid open. Pain exploded through my fingertips. It was like 1,000 tiny needles. A jolt of electricity shot up my arms, right into my shoulders. It felt like my whole body was vibrating, shaking apart. The shock went through me like a lightning bolt. My muscles seized up. It threw me back. I landed hard on a pile of old books. They were dusty and smelled like old paper. My head hit something hard. "Shit!" I gasped. The air rushed out of my lungs. I lay there, gasping, trying to get my breath back. My hand was still twitching. I cradled my hand. It felt like it was on fire. My fingers were twitching, numb and burning all at once. Reno cursed too. He jumped back, his eyes wide in the dim light. He stared at the box, then at me, his face pale. "Booby-trapped. What kind of psycho traps a jewelry box, Cole?" His voice was a little higher now, a thin edge of fear in it. We both just stared at it. The little black box. It sat there, innocent looking. But then I heard it. A faint humming sound. It was a low, steady hum, like a tiny machine working. It was almost like it was laughing at us, mocking us. The sound seemed to come from inside the box, a low, evil purr. That's when I noticed something else. Something was off about the rug. It was a small rug lying on the floor in front of the vanity. It looked wrong, too clean, not like the rest of the dusty, dirty house. It was a deep, rich red, almost new-looking. It stood out like a sore thumb. It was like someone had put it there on purpose to make it look old, but it wasn't. A trick, a bait. My mind was racing now, putting pieces together. I reached down. My hand was still throbbing, but I grabbed the edge of the rug. My fingers closed around the thick fabric. I pulled. I tugged it back. Click. The sound was sharp. Too late. It wasn't a soft click like the lock. It was a hard, mechanical click. A sharp metal bar swung down from the ceiling. It moved so fast. It was a blur, a dark streak through the air. Clank. It hit the floor right where my head had been just a second ago. The sound was deafening in the quiet house. It vibrated through the floor. It missed me by mere inches. I felt the wind of it. It was so close I could almost feel the cold metal against my scalp. "What the hell?" I gasped. My breath was coming in short, quick bursts. My heart was pounding like a drum. It felt like it would explode out of my chest. I scrambled backward, away from the rug, away from the bar. My legs felt weak, but I pushed myself away from the danger. "Reno," I called out. My voice cracked. No answer. Just the heavy silence of the house. It was a silence that felt even heavier now, more watchful. I lifted my flashlight. Its beam was shaky in my trembling hand. Just darkness and strange shapes everywhere. The junk seemed to loom larger, more menacing. The air felt thick, pressing in on me from all sides. Then I heard it. A sound that made my blood run cold. A scream. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a yell. It was wet. A choked, gurgling sound. It was like someone was trying to scream but couldn't get enough air. Reno's scream. It was short. It was cut off. Just like that. My heart slammed against my ribs. It felt like it would break through. A cold wave of terror washed over me, numbing my limbs. "Reno!" I yelled, louder this time. My voice echoed down the dark hallway, swallowed by the house. Still no answer, just the silence again, a silence that screamed louder than any sound could. I crept forward, one slow step after another. I swallowed down the panic that was rising in my throat. My throat felt raw, like sandpaper. My mouth was bone dry. Every single creak of the floorboards under my feet echoed like a gunshot in the quiet house. Each sound felt like a giant bell ringing, announcing my presence. I moved slowly, my flashlight sweeping the darkness. The shadows seemed to dance, to twist into new shapes. Then I saw it. His flashlight. It was still on. Its beam was flickering. It lay on the floor, shining against the side of an old, dark wardrobe. The light was weak, barely cutting through the gloom, and next to it, blood, a smear of it, dark and wet. It was a deep, ugly red. It trailed off into the deep shadows like a path leading to something I didn't want to see. My stomach twisted, my breath hitched in my throat. I pulled out my knife. It felt cold and hard in my hand. The blade glinted faintly in the weak light. It was my only comfort. I wasn't sticking around here, not anymore. I turned back, ready to run. I aimed for the kitchen, thinking that was the way out, the way we came in, the way to freedom. But something had changed. The hallway I had just come from. It was different. Longer. Much longer than before. It stretched out into the darkness like a tunnel with no end, and narrower. The walls felt like they were closing in. They seemed to press in on me, making it hard to breathe. The piles of junk, the old furniture. They had shifted. A tall stack of old newspapers now blocked a path that had been open. It was like the house had taken a breath, like it had moved its ribs around, like it was a living thing, changing its shape. What? How? My mind raced. It didn't make any sense. Houses don't just move. I took one step forward. My foot landed on something soft, then hard. A floorboard gave way under my foot. It creaked loudly. It was a sickening groan, like an old bone breaking. Click. I froze. My entire body locked up. Every muscle in my body tensed. My breath caught in my throat. A sound like air being squeezed out of something whispered from above me. It was a soft hiss like a snake. Then, a dozen sewing needles. They rained down from the ceiling. They were thin, almost invisible in the dim light. They fell like silent, deadly rain. One of them jabbed straight through my arm. It was a sharp, burning pain. It went deep, a searing, hot poker. I screamed. I couldn't help it. It was a raw, animal sound torn from my gut. My flashlight slipped from my grasp. It hit the floor with a clatter. Darkness, complete darkness. The sound of the falling needles stopped. The silence returned, heavier than before. I yanked the needle out of my arm. Blood started running warm down my sleeve. It felt sticky and warm against my skin. The pain was throbbing now. Someone had booby-trapped this entire house. Not just for security, not just to stop robbers. This was deliberate. This was personal. This was a person who wanted to hurt us, who wanted us to suffer. This wasn't just a robbery gone wrong. This was a nightmare. I stumbled forward, blindly. My arm throbbed. I bumped into a wall, then found another hallway. I pushed through the darkness, my hands outstretched, feeling for something, anything to guide me. The air grew thick and heavy around me, pressing in. I saw a door. It looked like it led to a study. I pushed it open. It was a heavy wooden door, and it groaned on its hinges. As soon as the door creaked open, I started to cough, hard. My lungs burned. It was a dry, hacking cough that wouldn't stop. The air in that room was different. Sweet, like candy, but also chemical, almost fruity. It was a strange mix, sickly sweet and sharp at the same time. And then I started laughing. I couldn't stop it. It just burst out of me uncontrollably. It wasn't funny. Nothing was funny, but I couldn't stop. Then I heard Reno, somewhere nearby. He was laughing too, loud, barking laughter. It sounded crazy. It was a mad, wild sound, echoing through the house. My ribs started to hurt from all the laughing. My stomach cramped, my vision blurred. Everything spun. The room tilted. The walls seemed to melt and swirl around me. Something in the air. It was a gas. Laughing gas. That's what it was. It was filling my lungs, making my brain fuzzy. I collapsed against a bookshelf, wheezing, still cackling like a madman. Tears streamed down my face, but they weren't from sadness. They were from the laughter. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't stop the laughter. It was a terrible, terrifying thing to laugh when all you felt was fear. A child's voice. It whispered in my head, so clear. It was a soft, sing-song voice, like a little girl. Happy house, happy house, happy house. The words circled in my mind, over and over like a broken record. I crawled out of the room, dragging myself back into the hallway. My limbs felt heavy, like lead. My head swam. As I coughed the gas out of my lungs, a cold, hard truth hit me. This wasn't a house, not a normal one. It was a trap, a living, breathing trap. It was designed to catch, to hold, to torment. I passed an open doorway. My eyes were still blurry. The world was still wobbling, but I could make out shapes. Something reached out from the darkness. I didn't even see it. It was thin, almost invisible, stretched across the doorway. It was a tripwire. I had stepped on it. The sound was tiny, but it set off something huge. A pendulum blade. It came swinging down from the ceiling. It was a blur of shining metal, moving with terrifying speed. It moved so fast, it nicked my side. It ripped through my coat, then through my skin. A sharp, stinging pain. The pain was immediate, a searing line across my ribs. I dropped to the floor, panting. My side burned. I pressed my hand against the wound, feeling the warm, sticky blood. And then I heard it. Laughter. It came from somewhere upstairs. It wasn't crazy laughter. It wasn't hysterical. It was calm, amused, like someone watching a funny show. It was a woman's laughter. A low, soft chuckle. It made my blood run cold. This wasn't just some crazy person. This was someone enjoying this. Someone who liked to watch us suffer. I crawled behind an overturned bookcase, trying to hide. My chest was heaving. My heart was still pounding, but now it was mixed with a chilling dread. Why us? I whispered out loud. My voice was just a raw croak. It was barely a whisper, lost in the silence of the house. The voice floated down. It was like smoke, soft and airy. It was the same calm, amused voice from before. You picked my house. The words drifted down, clear as a bell. It was a woman's voice. Software, almost sweet, but with an edge that cut right through me. It was a voice that promised pain, wrapped in silk. I bolted up. My legs felt like jelly, but I pushed myself up. I had to get out. I had to escape this nightmare. I stumbled through another hall. The air changed again. This time it smelled like burnt rubber and gasoline. It was a strange, sharp smell. It stung my nose, making my eyes water. Suddenly, I was in a child's bedroom. It was so out of place. It was bright, almost glowing in the dimness. Everything in it was pristine, perfect. A tiny bed with a perfectly made quilt. A small dresser, neatly arranged. Too pristine, too perfect. It was like a museum exhibit, untouched by time or dust. A dollhouse sat right in the center of the room. It was a grand old dollhouse with many tiny windows and a little front porch. It looked exactly like the house I was in. Exactly. Every detail was there. From the peeling paint to the crooked fence. Even the tiny furniture inside it was placed just like I'd seen it. The miniature piles of junk, the little vanity, the small rug. There were 2 little dolls at the back door of the dollhouse. They were tiny, painted figures, dressed in dark clothes. One was lying down. Its head, it was gone. Just a smooth, empty neck. It lay there, broken, discarded. The other doll? It was standing up, and it had a tiny knife in its hand. My blood ran cold. This was a game, and we were the dolls. She was playing with us. She was playing with our lives, and she was winning. I turned and ran. I didn't know where I was going. Panic was a hot, burning wave, consuming me. Room after room blurred past me. They all looked the same dusty junk, the same shifting walls, the same terrifying silence. One door led to another hallway. That hallway split into 2. It was like a never-ending maze, twisting and turning. The kitchen was nowhere to be found. It was gone. The exit, the way out, it was gone too. It was like the house was swallowing itself, closing off all escape routes. This wasn't a house. It wasn't just a trap. It was a game. A sick, twisted game. A maze. A maze designed to warp and shift, to change around me. It was alive. It was breathing. And it was hungry. I found a basement door. It was old and heavy. It was tucked away in a dark corner, almost hidden. I nearly threw myself through it, desperate for any escape. Anywhere. The stairs groaned under my weight. Each step was loud in the quiet. They were old, wooden stairs, creaking under every movement. Down there it was cold, wet. The air was thick and heavy. It smelled like damp earth and something else, something metallic. And in the middle of the basement, tied to a chair, was Reno. He was still alive. His eyes were wide. So wide they looked like they would pop out. They were staring straight ahead, fixed on something I couldn't see. His mouth was sewn shut. Stitches. Thick, black thread. It was a grotesque, horrifying sight. His face was pale, almost gray. Blood was on his pants, on his hands. His hands were tied to the arms of the chair, his fingers raw and scraped. A camera was pointed right at him, a big old camera on a tripod. It was just sitting there, silently recording. And behind the camera, her, Anna Mae Cunning. But she wasn't frail. She wasn't elderly. She stood tall. Her back was straight. Her face was stretched, waxy. It looked unnatural, like a mask someone had worn for too long. Her eyes were cold, flat, like glass marbles. "You both stole lives," she said. Her voice was calm. So calm. It was the same sweet, cutting voice from before. She walked toward me slowly. Each step was quiet. Her footsteps made no sound on the damp concrete floor. Not just things. My sister, my daughter. People like you took them. Her voice was low, but it filled the whole basement. I backed away. My heart was a frantic bird in my chest. It was beating so hard, I thought it would burst. "We never hurt anyone," I started to say. The water was thick, heavy, pulling me down. I tried to climb back up. My hands scrabbled at the walls. They were slick, impossible to grip, but the walls were greased, smooth. There was nothing to hold on to. My fingers slipped and slid, finding no purchase. Then her voice came again. It sounded distant now, like it was coming from far away. It echoed in the dark chamber, cold and clear. "Some thieves go to prison. The lucky ones." She paused. The silence was heavy. A chilling, pregnant pause. "Others?" Another pause. A long, chilling one. "Others become part of the house." Her voice faded, leaving me in the cold, dark water. Alone, with the things that moved beneath me. I don't know how long I was down there. It felt like forever. Hours. Days. Time had no meaning in that blackness. The cold, the dark, the things moving in the water. It was a nightmare that never ended. A constant struggle against the cold and the fear. When I woke up, I was back in the child's room, the pristine room. It was still perfect, still untouched. A cruel mockery of innocence. I was tied. My arms and legs were bound tight. Ropes dug into my skin, biting deep. I couldn't move, not an inch. I was helpless, completely at her mercy. I heard sounds, nails, boards. She was sealing me into the walls, the sound of wood being hammered into place. I screamed. I begged her to stop. My voice was hoarse. It was a desperate, broken sound, but she just kept working. The sounds of hammering echoed. Each blow was a nail driven into my coffin. She whispered through the wood one last time. Her voice was so close. It was right next to my ear, a chilling breath. Now you guard the house. Months later, a new couple moved into the house, the old house on the edge of San Miner. They were young, excited. They talked about starting a family. It was cheap real estate, they said, a good deal. They didn't know the real price, and it had beautiful antique furniture. Surprisingly, it was all intact. They admired the old vanity, the little black jewelry box. They didn't know about Reno, or about me. They didn't know we were still here. But late at night, sometimes, the little dollhouse moves, just a tiny bit. A slight shift, a subtle tremor. And in the walls, if you listen very, very closely, you can hear it, the sound of nails being scratched out from the inside, one by one. A slow, agonizing sound, a promise, a warning. My name is Mike. I got this old writing desk called the draft room after my uncle passed away. It was hidden way up in the attic of his big old house. That house was super old, like from a long, long time ago. It smelled like dust and forgotten things. That attic did. The desk sat in a dark corner, covered with a white sheet. It looked like a ghost under there. When I pulled the sheet off, the wood was dark and shiny. It felt cold to the touch, even on a warm day. It had fancy carvings, like old vines twisting around. My uncle loved old stuff. He was a writer too, you know, always scribbling away, even when he was really old. He said this desk was special. He used to tell me stories about it, crazy stories really. He'd say it had a mind of its own. I just thought he was being funny. He'd talk about how the desk would hum sometimes, a low, soft sound like a sleeping cat. He said it was thinking up new tales. He'd show me strange doodles on old paper. He'd say, "The desk drew these, Mikey. It has its own ideas." I'd just nod and smile. You probably heard the stories, right? The ones about writers going crazy, or how the desk would write stories all by itself. People even said they heard whispers coming from its drawer at night. My uncle would wink when he told me those parts. He'd say, "Mikey, this desk, it wants to tell its own tales." I just laughed it off. I mean, who believes that stuff? A desk that writes? A desk that whispers? It sounded like something out of a spooky movie, not real life. I heard all those whispers, but I just shook my head. I didn't believe any of it. Not at first, anyway. I mean, who would? It just sounded like silly old tales. The first time I heard it, I was just sitting there, typing on my laptop, trying to write my own story. A little scratching sound came from the desk drawer. It was faint, like a mouse. I thought maybe a bug got in there. So I pulled the drawer open, looked inside. Nothing. Just empty space. Then the whispers started. Soft at first, like a breeze through dry leaves. It sounded like a lot of voices, all talking at once, but too quiet to understand. It was like a radio station, but the signal was weak. Just a jumble of sounds. I told myself it was just my imagination. I told myself it was the old house settling. Or maybe the wind outside. I tried to ignore it, to keep writing. But it kept going. It got louder, like a low hum that vibrated in my bones. It felt like words were trying to push their way into my head. I'd shake my head, try to clear it. It felt like a buzzing behind my eyes, like a headache trying to start. I'd rub my temples, but it didn't help. Sometimes I'd swear I heard my name. Just a little whisper. Mike, it would make the hairs on my arms stand up. But I'd tell myself I was tired. It sounded so real, though, like someone right behind me. I'd snap my head around, but no one was there. Just the empty room. I spent hours at that desk, trying to write, trying to make sense of the strange feelings. It felt like the air around it was thick, like soup. It was hard to breathe sometimes, like the air was heavy with unspoken words. It made my chest feel tight. My stories weren't going well. My ideas felt borrowed, like they weren't really mine. They felt heavy, dark. I'd start writing something, and it would twist. It would turn grim and scary, even if I wanted it to be light. It was like the desk was guiding my hand. I'd write about a happy family, and suddenly, one of them would disappear, or a friendly pet would turn into a monster. It wasn't what I wanted. I tried to fight it. I'd erase lines, delete whole paragraphs, but the words would just come back, or new, darker ones would appear. It was like my fingers had a mind of their own. They'd type things I didn't mean to type, things that made my skin crawl. I started feeling tired all the time, like my brain was working overtime, even when I was just sitting still. My eyes felt heavy. I'd stare at the desk, wondering if it was really doing this. It just sat there, dark and silent, but I knew. I started leaving the room more often, trying to get away from it, but the feeling would follow me. The whispers would follow me into the kitchen, into the bedroom, even into the bathroom. They were everywhere. I couldn't escape the feeling of being watched, like the desk had eyes, even when I wasn't looking at it. My appetite went away. Food tasted like ash. I lost weight. My clothes started to hang on me. My friends called. They asked if I was okay. I'd tell them I was just busy writing. I didn't want to tell them what was really happening. Who would believe me? They'd think I was crazy, just like my uncle. I didn't want to be like him, but you already know that part of the story. You know I didn't listen. What you don't know is what happened after I tried to stop everything, after I tried to end it all. It had been weeks of pure torture, I mean really bad stuff. It started slow, then got worse and worse, like a fever. It was like a bad dream that never ended. Every day, every night, it was just more fear, more weirdness. I couldn't sleep right anymore. Every time I closed my eyes, the stories would start. Not just my stories, but new ones. They would flash in my mind, like a movie playing on fast forward. Horrible pictures, terrible sounds. I couldn't turn them off. Monsters started showing up when I was wide awake, not just in my dreams, but right there in front of me. They weren't blurry or fading. They were solid. I'd be making coffee in the kitchen, and a shadow would stretch too long across the floor. Then it would stand up tall and thin, with glowing red eyes. It moved without a sound, just a tall, dark shape. Its eyes burned holes in the air. It would just watch me, unblinking. Or I'd be watching TV, and a creature with too many teeth would peek around the corner of the hallway. It would just stare, not moving. Its teeth were long and sharp, like broken glass. Its skin was pale and wet. It smelled like old meat. It would just stand there, breathing heavily. Sometimes I'd see things out of the corner of my eye. A flash of movement, a flicker of something impossible. When I turned, it was gone. But I knew it was there, always there, just out of sight, waiting. The stories I was supposed to write kept playing over and over in my head. They looped through my dreams like a broken record. I couldn't get them to stop. They were always dark, always scary. Stories about people trapped, or things that couldn't die. They felt like they were trying to force themselves out of my brain. I'd hear screams, muffled and far away, or the sound of chains dragging. It was like I was living inside a horror movie, and the characters, the ones I hadn't even made up yet, they would just stand there, right at the end of my bed, staring at me. It was so creepy. One night, a little girl with long black hair just stood there. Her eyes were empty, like black holes. She didn't move, didn't breathe, just watched me. Her dress was white, but stained with something dark. She held a broken doll in her hand. Its head was twisted backwards. She just stood there, perfectly still. Not even her chest moved. It was like looking at a picture, but I knew she was real. Another time, it was an old man with a torn suit. He had a strange, sad smile. He just stood there, shaking his head slowly, like he knew something terrible was coming. His skin was gray and wrinkled. His eyes were cloudy, like old glass. He smelled like dirt and decay. He never spoke, just that slow, sad shake of his head. It was like he was pitying me, or warning me. I couldn't take it anymore. I just couldn't. I felt like I was losing my mind. My head hurt all the time. My stomach was always in knots. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I just sat there, waiting for the next thing to happen. My body felt weak and shaky. I knew I had to do something. This wasn't just me being tired or stressed. This was real. This was happening. This wasn't just a weird desk. It was alive, and it was trying to break me. I had to fight back, so I made a plan. I was going to get rid of that desk. I was going to destroy it. I had to. I didn't want to sell it. No way. Who would I sell it to? Some antique dealer who would just pass the curse on? No, I didn't want anyone else to go through this. This pain, this fear, it was too much. I didn't want to give it to anyone else. I couldn't wish this on anyone, not even my worst enemy. It felt like a poison, and I was the only one who could stop it from spreading. I had to be strong, and I definitely didn't want to just bury it, like my uncle tried to do. He told me once, "Mikey, I tried to put it away, but it always comes back." He had buried it in the backyard, under an old oak tree. He thought it was gone, but it just showed up in his attic again. I wanted to smash it. I wanted to burn it all up. I wanted to drown it. I wanted to break it into tiny pieces, into dust. I wanted to make it totally silent. I pictured it in my head, splinters flying, flames licking the wood, the dark ink burning away. I wanted it gone, completely. I wanted to see it turn to ash, to feel the heat of the fire, to know it was finally, truly destroyed. I thought if I did that, it would set me free. I really believed it would make all the bad stories stop for good. I thought it would close them forever. I thought it would make the whispers stop, the monsters disappear. I thought I could get my normal life back. I dreamed of quiet nights, of peaceful sleep, of a house that felt like home again, not a haunted place. But I was wrong. Oh, so wrong. The draft room, that old desk, it had its own plans. And they were nothing like mine. It was like it was waiting for me, like it knew what I was going to do. It felt like a trap, and I was walking right into it. It had been playing with me, toying with me, leading me to this moment. I was just a character in its story. I waited for the right time. It was the first Sunday after the last time I blacked out. Those blackouts were getting worse. I'd just lose time. One minute I'd be standing in my living room, the next I'd be outside, miles away, with no idea how I got there. My clothes would be dirty, my head would be pounding, and I'd have these strange words in my mouth, like I'd been saying them over and over. Words that weren't mine. I'd wake up in a strange park, or by a lonely road. My throat would be raw, like I'd been screaming. The nightmares had gotten so much worse too. They weren't just in my head anymore. They were spilling out into the real world. Whole forests of words would grow in the hallway, like trees made of letters. They would twist and turn, the letters forming strange, unreadable sentences. They rustled like real leaves when I walked past. It was so weird and scary. I'd try to touch them, but my hand would just go through. The letters would shimmer, like they were alive. They'd spell out things I didn't want to read, things about my fears. Dead characters, ones from stories that weren't even real, would cry outside my windows. Their sad sounds filled the night. It sounded like 100 people weeping. They would press their faces against the glass, their eyes hollow. I could see their breath fogging up the window, even though they weren't real. Their tears left streaks on the glass. They looked so real, so full of pain. It was heartbreaking and terrifying at the same time. Ink started leaking from the walls. It looked like dark, thick blood. It ran down the paint, leaving black trails. It smelled like old paper and something metallic. It would drip onto the floor, forming puddles that shimmered. If I touched it, it felt cold and sticky. It stained everything it touched. It was like the house was bleeding out its stories. The black trails looked like veins spreading across the walls. It was all too much. I had to stop it. My whole house was turning into a nightmare. My whole life was. I couldn't live like this anymore. I was a prisoner in my own home, my own mind. So I got ready. I packed a can of gasoline. It was heavy, sloshing inside. The smell made my nose burn. I grabbed a strong crowbar. It was cold and heavy in my hand. I imagined smashing the desk with it, breaking it into pieces. I felt a surge of grim determination. This was it. One way or another, it was ending today. And I found an old family hammer. It looked really ancient, even older than the house itself. It felt heavy in my hand, solid and old. It had a dark, worn handle. I wondered who else in my family had used it, what they had built or broken with it. It felt like it had a history, a weight of its own. I hoped it would be strong enough for this. Dragging that desk outside into the backyard took everything I had. It was so heavy, it felt like it was fighting me, like it had roots. Every inch I pulled, it resisted. The legs scraped on the floorboards, leaving deep gouges. It felt like pulling a dead body. It groaned and shivered under my hands. The wood felt strangely warm, then cold, like it was breathing. The old wood groaned and creaked. It sounded like it was breathing, like it was alive. A low, deep sound, like a sigh. It was a sound of protest, a sound of pain, or maybe a sound of dark amusement. Every time I blinked, it seemed to get heavier. My muscles screamed. Sweat dripped into my eyes. My arms ached. My back burned. I thought I would collapse, but I kept pulling. I had to. It looked bigger too, and more. Awake. Like it was watching me. Like it knew what I was trying to do. Its dark wood seemed to absorb the light. The carvings seemed to twist and deepen. The vines looked like they were growing, like they were reaching for me. I finally got it out into the middle of the yard. The grass was wet with dew. The air was still and quiet, too quiet. The birds weren't singing. The wind wasn't blowing. It was like the whole world was holding its breath. I poured the gasoline over it. The dark liquid soaked into the wood. The smell was sharp and strong. It made my eyes water. I pulled out a match. My hand was shaking so bad, I almost dropped the box. I struck it against the box. The little flame popped up. It flickered, a tiny orange eye in the dim morning light. I held it close to the desk, ready to light the gasoline. My heart hammered in my chest. This was it. The end, the freedom. I could almost taste it. But then, just like that, it went out. The flame just died. No puff of smoke, no sizzle. Just gone, like someone blew it out. My breath hitched. My hand froze. It was like a cruel joke. I tried a second match. My heart was pounding. I struck it hard, scraping it against the box, but it snapped right in my fingers. It broke in half. The little pieces fell to the ground. It felt like the desk was laughing at me, a cold, silent laugh. Despair started to creep in. It was fighting back. It didn't want to die. On my third try, something strange happened. A strong gust of wind came out of nowhere. It was hot, and it was fast. It wasn't a normal wind. It felt like a huge breath, like some giant, unseen mouth was blowing right at me. The air felt thick and heavy, like it was pushing down on me. It smelled like old paper and something else, something ancient and terrible. It pressed against me, trying to push me away. Then, the desk made a terrible sound, a loud, cracking sound. It wasn't just wood splitting, it was deeper, like bone breaking. It sounded like a scream, a long, drawn-out scream of pain and rage. It vibrated through the ground. It split open, not just the drawer, the whole desk. It broke right across its smooth, shiny top, like the ground had split open in an earthquake. A deep, dark crack ran from one end to the other. It widened, slowly at first, then faster. It was like the desk was tearing itself apart. The wood groaned and splintered. Bits of dark, old timber flew through the air. The crack kept growing, wider and wider. The inside of the desk wasn't wood at all. It looked like pages, millions and millions of them. They were packed in tight like layers of old skin. They were yellowed, brittle, some crumbling at the edges. They had faint, dark writing on them, words I couldn't quite make out. There were long scrolls rolled up tight, old yellowed parchment, brittle and thin. Diaries covered in what looked like dried blood. The writing faded. Some of the scrolls unrolled a little, showing strange symbols. The diaries looked ancient, their covers stiff and dark, and whole books of ideas that had never been written down. They were all squirming inside the desk, like a pile of worms or snakes. They writhed and twisted, pushing against each other. A faint, papery rustling filled the air. It sounded like 1,000 whispers. The rustling grew louder. It was like the sound of dry leaves skittering across a vast empty plain, or 1,000 tiny hands scratching. Then, they started to pour out, one by one. They just kept coming, like a dam breaking. It wasn't just pages, it was more. It was the things on the pages, the things in the stories. The first one was a woman. Her mouth was sewn shut with thick black stitches. Her eyes were wide and terrified. She was dragging a big sack behind her. Her dress was old and torn, covered in dust. She moved slowly like she was in pain. Her bare feet dragged on the grass. She didn't make a sound, not even a breath, just that wide, scared stare. Her hands were raw and bleeding from dragging the sack. The sack wasn't filled with things. It was filled with sounds, the sounds of babies screaming. It was the most awful sound I ever heard, high-pitched, desperate wails that ripped through the quiet morning. They weren't real babies, I knew that. But the sound was real. It made my ears ache, made my stomach turn. It was the sound of pure, endless sorrow. The screams were so loud they filled the air. They echoed in my head. I wanted to cover my ears, but I couldn't move. Then came a man. His skin was peeling off in strips. Underneath, I could see gears and springs. Like a clockwork machine, his insides were metal. He walked with jerky movements, his limbs clicking. He kept ticking, a soft, steady tick-tock, tick-tock. It was the only sound he made. His eyes were wide and empty, like glass marbles. He didn't seem to see me, just walked past, his mechanical heart beating a slow rhythm. His movements were stiff, like an old toy. Every step was a clunk and a whir. He smelled like oil and rust. Next was a small child. This kid had no eyes, just smooth skin where eyes should be. It was so unnatural, so wrong. Its skin was pale, almost see-through. Its hair was fine and white. It looked like it had never seen the sun. It moved by feeling the air with its small hands. Its head tilted, like it was listening for something I couldn't hear. The child started talking, reciting verses from the Bible, but backwards. The words were twisted and wrong, like a nightmare prayer. It was chilling. The voice was soft, innocent, but the words were pure evil. The words scraped against my mind. They felt like they were trying to twist my own thoughts. It was a sound that shouldn't exist. Then came a whole army, an army of forgotten killers. They moved like ghosts, silent and swift. Their clothes were old and bloody. Their faces were etched with pain, but their eyes held a cold, dead light. They carried old knives and rusty axes. They looked so sad and so angry. They didn't look at me, just marched past, their feet making no sound on the grass. They were like shadows come to life. Their eyes were the worst. They held a deep, ancient hurt, but also a burning rage. They were coming for something. There were orphaned queens. Their crowns were crooked, made of rusted metal and broken jewels. Their faces were full of sorrow. They looked lost, like they'd been searching for something for a long, long time. Their long, tattered dresses dragged behind them. They whispered to each other, their voices thin and reedy, like wind through empty rooms. They clutched broken scepters. Their faces were streaked with dirt and old tears. They looked like they had been abandoned. Tentacled priests followed them. Their bodies were covered in long, slimy tentacles. They slithered on the ground, leaving glistening trails. Their robes were dark and wet. Their faces were hidden by hoods, but I could see the tentacles writhing around their necks, reaching out. The tentacles squelched on the grass. They twitched and coiled, like they had a life of their own. They smelled like the ocean, but a dead ocean, and dying suns. Not real suns, but like glowing, fading lights. They floated in the air, getting dimmer and dimmer, casting weak, orange light. They drifted slowly, like huge, sad balloons. Their light pulsed, then faded, then pulsed again, weaker each time. They looked like they were breathing their last. They hummed a low, mournful sound. As they passed, the air grew cold, then warm again. Like a fever dream, all these things, all these people and creatures, they were from stories, stories that had never been published, stories that had never even been written down. But they had lived inside that desk, waiting, breathing, growing. They were the forgotten, the unwritten, the ones that never saw the light of day, and now they were real, and now they were free. They were all free, and they were everywhere. They spread out across my yard, then into the street, then beyond. They flowed like a dark river, a silent, strange parade. They didn't look back, they just kept moving. I just stood there, watching them go. My mind couldn't make sense of it. It was too much, too real. My body felt frozen. My mouth was dry. I couldn't scream. I couldn't even blink. The sun was rising, but the light felt wrong. It felt thin and weak, like it was afraid. I could hear the faint sounds of the town waking up, but it was a different kind of morning, a new, terrifying kind. I watched until the last one disappeared, the last dying sun. Then the silence returned, but it was a heavy silence. The desk lay there, split open, empty, like a hollowed-out shell. It looked like it had given birth to a nightmare. I finally found my voice. It was a raw, broken sound, a scream that tore from my throat. I ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just ran. Away from the desk. Away from the house. Away from the town. I just ran and ran. My legs burned. My lungs ached. I didn't stop until I couldn't run anymore, until I collapsed on the side of a road. The police found me later. I was 2 towns away from my house. I was screaming, just screaming my head off. My voice was hoarse. My throat was raw. I couldn't stop the sounds. They just kept coming. I was yelling about fiction spilling into the streets. I was trying to tell them what happened, about the desk, about the people pouring out. I pointed back the way I came. "They're coming! They're real!" I cried. But they just looked at me. But they didn't get it. They looked at me like I was crazy. Their eyes were full of pity and something else, something like fear. They said I was just shocked. They said I had a breakdown. They said I was crazy. That's what people say when they can't explain something. They tried to calm me down. They talked in soft voices. They put a blanket around me. But I knew. That's how they always react to things that can't be real. Impossible things. But they couldn't explain everything. They couldn't explain why people started disappearing. Not just 1 or 2. A lot of people. From all over Colton. It started slowly. A missing person report here. Another there. Then more and more. They would just vanish without a trace. No struggle, no signs. Just gone. Like they were erased. One day, a whole family was gone. Their car was still in the driveway. Their breakfast was still on the table. But they were gone. And they couldn't explain how Colton, my town, seemed to change. It felt different, like it was becoming a story itself. The colors seemed brighter, then duller. The sounds were off, like the world was being rewritten around us. The sky would sometimes turn a strange shade of green, or the trees would look too red. It was unsettling. Street signs started to move. They would rearrange themselves overnight. They turned into broken sentences like a weird poem written by a madman. Lost path, forgotten road, here ends the tale. Things like that. It made no sense, but it was always there. One sign would say Main Street, then the next day it would say the endless corridor. It was like the town was playing tricks. People would just vanish, right in the middle of talking. 1 minute they were there, the next they were gone. Poof, like a puff of smoke. I saw it happen to my neighbor, Mrs. Adams. She was telling me about her prize-winning roses. Then, mid-sentence, she just shimmered and vanished. Her voice just stopped. Her hand, reaching for a rose, froze in the air. Then she was gone, like she was never there. I saw it happen to a kid riding his bike. 1 minute he was laughing, the next he was just gone. The bike fell to the ground. Whole neighborhoods changed. Houses would appear or disappear. Streets would twist and turn into mazes. A familiar street would suddenly end in a brick wall, or a new house would pop up overnight, looking old and forgotten. People in them forgot who they were. They started acting like characters from a book. They would say strange lines, like they were reading from a script. My old mailman started wearing a knight's helmet. He'd deliver letters, but he'd call them royal decrees. He didn't know who I was. They would act out parts, like they were in a play. A woman would suddenly start crying about a lost love she never had. A man would declare himself king of the block. It was so strange and scary to see. They didn't seem to notice anything was wrong. They just lived their new parts. They were happy in their new roles. It was like their old lives had been erased. and new ones written in their place. I tried to tell them. I really did. I tried to warn everyone. I tried to make them understand. I stood on street corners yelling. I knocked on doors, trying to explain. But they just looked at me with blank eyes or told me to go home. They thought I was the crazy one. They just smiled that strange, empty smile, like they were characters in a story. I told them that stories weren't just words on a page. They weren't just things to read. They were alive. I told them they were living things, and they were dangerous. They could take over. They could change everything. I told them about the desk, about the things that came out of it, but they just blinked. They didn't understand. I knew I couldn't stay there. The town was becoming a trap, a story I didn't want to be in. Now I live underground. I mean, literally underground. I found this old bunker. It was from the Cold War. It was hidden deep down under an old abandoned farm. I had to dig for days to find the entrance. The earth was hard. My hands bled, but I kept digging. I needed to be safe. I sealed myself in. I made sure it was locked tight. Concrete walls, heavy steel door. I thought I was safe there. I brought in food, water, a generator, enough to last me a long time. I thought I could outlast it. The air was stale, but it was safe. No strange shadows, no whispering walls. Just the quiet hum of the generator. The stories can't find me here. Not yet, anyway. I hope they never do. I really hope. I spend my days checking the walls, listening, waiting. My nerves are always on edge, but I hear them. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, and I hear laughter. It sounds like it's coming from behind the walls, like someone is having a party. But there's no one there, just me. It's a low, mocking laughter, like they know something I don't, like they're just waiting. It's not human laughter. It's too cold, too sharp. It makes my skin prickle. Or I hear the sound of typewriter keys clacking away in the quiet. Tap, tap, tap. It's so loud in the silence of the bunker. It sounds like someone is writing endlessly, writing new stories, writing new characters, writing new worlds. Sometimes it sounds fast, like a flurry of words. Other times, slow and deliberate, like choosing each word carefully. And sometimes it's even worse. I hear my own voice reading a story that I haven't even written yet. It's like I'm already part of it. It's my voice, but the words aren't mine. They're dark, twisted. They tell of things I've never imagined. I hear myself describing terrible scenes, horrible events, things that make my stomach churn. It's like a recording, playing over and over. A story I am forced to tell, even though I don't want to. I think the draft room made copies of me, like it copied my mind, my voice, my thoughts. It took a piece of me, a piece of my soul, and now it uses it. It copied all of us. Everyone who ever sat in front of it, everyone who ever tried to write on it. It took our essence, our ideas, and now it uses them. It makes new stories, endless stories. It's like we are all part of its big, terrible book, characters in its grand design. It's out there, somewhere, still writing, still creating, still hungry. It never stops. It never rests. It just keeps feeding on new ideas, on new lives. Far away, on the edge of Chase and Colton, there's a library. It's a forgotten place. You won't find it on any map. The road to it is overgrown. The signs are broken. It looks like it's been empty for years. The windows are dark. The paint is peeling. It looks like a place the world forgot. Inside that library, there's a new desk. It looks sleek, very modern, and it's white. White like a bone. It sits in the middle of the main room, shining under the dim light. It looks harmless, inviting. It's too clean, too perfect. It doesn't have any dust. It doesn't have any age. A man walks into the library. He's carrying a paper, a manuscript. It's a story he wrote. He walks with a strange, smooth glide. His clothes are neat. His hair is slicked back. He has a smile on his face. It's too wide. It stretches too far. It doesn't look right. It doesn't reach his eyes. It's a painted smile, a fake smile, like a mask. It never changes. His eyes are empty, like the clockwork man's, like the eyeless child's. They are dark and still, no light in them, no feelings, just a blank stare. He sits down at the new desk. He opens the drawer. It slides out easily, silently. There's a faint hum from the desk, a low, soft sound, like it's purring, and he starts to write. His pen moves across the paper. The words flow out, fast and steady. He doesn't look up. He just writes, and writes, and writes. His hand moves without stopping. The pen scratches across the paper. The words fill the page. The stories are always hungry. They always want more. They never stop. They need new lives, new ideas, new worlds to twist and turn. And now, they're everywhere. They're in the air, in the ground, in the people. They're waiting for someone new to sit down, for someone new to write. They are in the whispers on the wind, in the shadows that stretch too long, in the dreams that won't let you go. They are in the forgotten corners, in the quiet moments, in the spaces between words. They are waiting for you, to tell their tale, to become part of their story. I was just Alex, a regular guy, 28 years old. I lived in a town called Las Spine. It was a pretty normal place, with quiet streets and friendly faces. My apartment was on the second floor of an old brick building. It had a small balcony where I sometimes drank coffee. The morning sun felt nice there. I wrote for the local paper, the Las Spine Gazette. It wasn't a big city newspaper. We covered things like bake sales and new traffic lights. We wrote about town meetings, school plays, and the high school football scores. It was simple news for simple folk. It wasn't fancy work, but it was my life. It felt safe and simple. I liked that feeling. It was predictable, and that was good. I had a small apartment. It was nothing special, just 2 rooms and a tiny kitchen. But it was mine. It was cozy, and I had Saffron. She was my cat, a fluffy orange tabby, always purring. She was always there, a warm spot on my lap. Saffron was my little shadow. She followed me from room to room. If I went to the kitchen, she was right behind me. If I sat down to work, she'd jump on the desk. She'd curl up near my keyboard. Her soft purr was like a quiet song. She was my best friend, really, always there, never judging. Just a warm, furry presence. One Tuesday, I was typing up a story. It was about a new park bench they put in downtown. Pretty exciting stuff, right? I was trying to make it sound interesting, even though it was just a bench. My fingers flew across the keyboard. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was just a Twitter notification, I figured. I didn't even look right away. I was in the middle of a sentence. I wanted to finish it first. Just a quick buzz. Then it buzzed again, and again, and again. It wouldn't stop. It was like a crazy bee trapped in a jar. My phone screen was lit up like a Christmas tree, hundreds of them, all at once. It kept vibrating, shaking the desk. What in the world? I mumbled to myself. My voice was a little shaky. I picked up my phone. My fingers felt a little weird, like they were made of jelly. Something felt wrong. This wasn't normal. I clicked on the first tweet. My eyes went wide. It was from my own account. It said, "I know what you did. You lied about him. You killed his name. You'll pay for that." My stomach dropped like a stone. It hit the floor with a thud. I hadn't tweeted all day. I hadn't even opened Twitter. This was wrong. Very, very wrong. I felt a cold knot in my gut. Panic started to bubble up inside me. It felt like fizzy soda in my chest. I quickly changed my password. I made it a super long one with numbers and symbols. I wanted it to be impossible to guess. I turned on all the extra security settings. I made it super hard for anyone to get in. Then I deleted the tweet. I hoped that was the end of it. Just a bad joke, maybe. A hacker who picked the wrong guy. Maybe it was a hacker, I thought. But why me? I wasn't some big shot reporter. I wrote about potholes, not huge secrets. I was just Alex. Who would want to mess with me? Then another tweet popped up, right there on my screen. It was live, from my account. It said, "It starts with the cat." And then, right after that, another one. I froze. My blood ran cold. It felt like ice water in my veins. That wasn't just creepy. It was aimed right at me. It knew about Saffron. Only a few people knew about her. I only had one cat. My Saffron. She was the one who listened when I talked to myself late at night. She was there when my mind felt like it was spinning too fast. She was my comfort, my little furry therapist. The thought of someone hurting her, it made my hands clench into fists, my jaw tightened. I left work right away. I didn't even tell my boss. I just grabbed my keys and ran. My coworkers probably thought I was crazy. I didn't care. I had to get home. The streetlights blurred as I drove home. They looked like long, streaky lines. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. My heart was pounding. It felt like a drum beating inside my chest, faster and faster. The apartment was dark and quiet when I walked in. My usual words, "Saffron Daddy's home," felt like a whisper in an empty room. The silence was heavy. It pressed down on me. She didn't come running. She always did. She always met me at the door, rubbing against my legs, purring loudly. She'd weave around my ankles. I called her name again, louder this time. "Saffron, here, kitty." My voice cracked a little. I checked her favorite spots. The kitchen window where she liked to watch the birds. Her little bed by the heater. Nothing. My breath hitched. My eyes darted around the room. Every shadow seemed to hide something. Then I saw it. A tiny trail on the floor. It was dark. Small paw prints. They looked like they were made of something dark and sticky. My breath caught in my throat. Blood. My stomach twisted into a painful knot. I followed the trail. My heart was pounding like a drum. It led to the bathroom. The door was a little open. My legs felt heavy, like I was walking through thick mud. I didn't want to see what was inside. I pushed it open slowly. My hand shook. My eyes scanned the room. The air felt cold. She was in the bathtub, curled up in a way that wasn't right. Her fur was wet with a dark, thick mess. Her little body was still. Too still. My vision blurred. I didn't scream. I couldn't. All the air just left my lungs. It felt like someone punched me in the stomach. A cold, empty feeling spread through me. It was like my insides had turned to ice. I backed away slowly, my hand shaking as I grabbed my phone. It felt heavy. I dialed 911, but the line just made a weird static sound. It was like a broken radio. It dropped. My fingers fumbled. I tried again. My phone screen went black. It just shut off, like someone flipped a switch. It was gone. Just a dead piece of plastic in my hand. Useless. Completely useless. I stood there in the dark bathroom. The silence was loud now. My mind was a jumble of thoughts. My chest felt tight. I couldn't move. I just stared at the dead phone. And then at the bathtub. Tears pricked at my eyes. But they wouldn't fall. It was like my body was frozen. The night was long and cold. I didn't sleep. I just sat on the couch, staring into the dark. Every shadow looked like it was moving. Every sound made me jump. I was terrified. I kept seeing Saffron's still body in my mind, over and over again. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I just sat there, shaking. By morning, Saffron's body was gone. The dark, sticky mess was gone too. Not a single trace. It was like she was never there. Like it was all a bad dream. But I knew it wasn't. The bathtub was clean. The floor was clean. It was like a ghost had cleaned up. I finally got a hold of animal control. My voice was shaky when I called. They came, looked around, and found nothing. No blood, no signs of anyone breaking in, no Saffron. They looked at me funny. They looked at me like I was making it up, like I was crazy. I could see it in their eyes. They asked me if I had been drinking, if I was stressed. I just shook my head, but the next tweet was waiting for me. It popped up on my laptop screen. "She's not gone. She's with me now. Do you want to join her?" And then, even worse, "Look in your closet." My heart pounded. It felt like a frantic bird trying to escape my chest. I told myself not to. I told myself it was just some sick person, a really good hacker playing a cruel joke. My stomach churned. My hands felt heavy, like they were made of lead. But I opened the closet anyway. The wood creaked as I pulled the door open. I peered into the darkness. There was a picture taped inside. A Polaroid. It was Saffron, curled up in my arms. It was from just 3 nights ago. We were in bed. The lights were off. My back was to the window. But the way the picture was taken, it was from inside the room. Someone had been standing there, watching me sleep, right in my own bedroom, while I was completely unaware. That's when I knew. This wasn't just mean words online. This was real. This was personal. This person was in my house. They were watching me. They hurt Saffron. They were here. A cold dread washed over me. It felt like icy water pouring down my back. I went to the police station. My legs felt like rubber. I told them everything. I tried to explain about the tweets, about Saffron, about the picture. My voice was fast and shaky. They wrote it all down, like they were making a shopping list, just nodding, not really listening. Cat goes missing. Strange tweets. You sure it's not a prank, son? The officer asked. He didn't even look up from his notepad. He just kept writing. He didn't believe me. Not really. He just wanted me to leave. I left feeling angry and very, very alone. No one believed me. No one cared. It felt like the world was closing in on me. I had nowhere to go, no one to trust. I stayed in a hotel that night. I picked one far away. No social media, no electronics, nothing. I just wanted to be away from it all, to feel safe for a little while, to breathe. I curled up in the bed, pulling the covers tight. I tried to sleep, but my mind raced. But when I turned on the hotel TV, the screen flickered. The channel froze, on static. Just a screen full of fuzzy gray and white. Then a voice, soft and scratchy, almost lost in the fuzz. It whispered, "You're running, Alex. But I live in your shadow." My blood ran cold again. I threw the remote. It clattered against the wall. I scrambled out of bed, backing away from the TV. My heart hammered against my ribs. I didn't sleep a wink. Every shadow in the room looked like it was moving. Every sound made me jump. I pulled the covers up to my chin. I just wanted the sun to come up, to make the shadows disappear. The next few days were a blur of fear and exhaustion. I barely ate. I barely slept. I spent the next few days digging. I went through all my old articles, every comment, every message, anyone I might have made mad, trolls, old friends, readers, anyone. I searched through old emails. I looked for anyone who might hold a grudge, anyone I might have upset without knowing it. And then I found him, David Thorne. The name hit me like a punch. It was like a cold wave washing over me. I remembered the story. 3 years ago, I wrote a story about him. He was an ex-convict trying to start over. He had been in jail for a long time. He was trying to turn his life around. He seemed like a good guy. He was working at a bakery, living a quiet life. He baked amazing bread. He seemed so sincere, so ready to change. I believed him. My article made him sound like a true comeback story, a hero. A month after it came out, though, a woman came forward. She said he had followed her, hurt her. My story had made him seem harmless. He was arrested again. They had another trial, and before they could tell him his sentence, he hanged himself in the county jail. He used his bedsheet. I remember reading the news. I couldn't believe it. I had thought he was good. I had made people feel sorry for him. I had painted him as a victim, but the woman he hurt, she was real. Her pain was real. I had forgotten about her, and now he was dead. Because of my story, the thought gnawed at me, except maybe not entirely. The tweets got worse. They weren't public anymore. They came as direct messages, just to me, screenshots of me sleeping, of me typing at my desk, of me eating dinner. It was like someone was always there, always watching, always just out of sight. A full conversation I had on the phone with my mom. Every word, my private life, gone. They knew everything, my deepest fears, my quietest moments. Then, messages in all capital letters. Do you still write people into nightmares? Tell the truth, or I will. My hands shook as I read them. My heart pounded. I felt sick to my stomach. The words burned into my eyes. They felt like a brand on my soul. One tweet went live for just a few seconds before I managed to pull it down, but it was too late. It was a public tweet, seen by everyone. It spread like wildfire. It said, Confession, I made up details about David's story to make it more readable. It got him killed. I'm not sorry. I never wrote that. I never would. But people were already sharing it. The hate started pouring in. It was like a flood. My phone buzzed and buzzed with angry messages. My email inbox filled up. I was canceled overnight. My name was everywhere, but not in a good way. People called me a liar, a killer. They said I deserved what happened to me. The whole world seemed ready to believe the worst about me. And maybe, just maybe, I was part of the worst. Maybe I had pushed too hard for a good story. Maybe I hadn't checked everything I should have. Maybe I had been careless. Maybe my ambition had blinded me. But I didn't kill him. At least, I didn't mean to. I just wrote a story. My editor called me. His voice was cold. He fired me. Just like that. Alex, this is a mess. We can't have this. You're done. His words were like a knife. My friends stopped answering my calls. They didn't want to talk to me. My texts went unanswered. My calls went straight to voicemail. I was a ghost to them. I was completely alone. My world had fallen apart. Everything I knew was gone. I sat in my apartment, the silence heavy around me. The only sound was my own breathing. I felt like I was drowning in lies and hate. Then, last night, I heard it. A soft purring sound. It was faint at first. It was so familiar, so comforting, but it sent a shiver down my spine. I turned around. My breath caught in my throat. And there she was, Saffron. She was standing in the hallway. Her fur looked a little matted. She looked thinner. Her tail hung low, but her eyes were wrong. Not golden like they used to be. They were jet black, like two dark holes. And her fur, it looked like it had been sewn back together, like she was a broken doll, like someone had stitched her up with thick black thread. Her body seemed lumpy, uneven. She meowed once, a soft, tiny sound. It wasn't the happy purr I knew. It was weak. And then all the lights in my apartment went out. Everything went dark. I heard a soft thump as Saffron fell to the floor, then silence. I don't know how long I was out. It felt like forever. When I woke up, the morning light was barely peeking through the blinds. My head ached. It felt like someone had hit me with a baseball bat. My mouth was dry. The final message was posted automatically. It was still there, pinned to my profile. Alex won't be tweeting anymore, but I will. One character at a time. I tried to use my phone, my laptop. Nothing worked. They were all dead, just black screens, no power, no connection, like they had been drained of life. I looked at the date on my alarm clock. 3 days had passed. I had been missing for 3 days. 3 whole days. Where had the time gone? What had happened? I had no memory of it. I tried to leave my apartment. I walked to the front door. I turned the knob. It was locked from the outside. I was trapped. A prisoner in my own home. I rattled the handle, then pounded on the door. Hey, let me out. My voice was raspy. No answer, just the hollow sound of my fists against the wood. I could hear the faint sound of typing. It was coming from my phone, lying on the floor. It was still posting. My words, twisted. My life, now a public show. I was a prisoner in my own home, and the world thought I was a monster. Days blurred into a hazy nightmare. I tried to yell, but my voice was hoarse. I tried to break free, but the door was solid. The windows were too high. I paced the small apartment, back and forth, like a caged animal. My mind screamed. The only connection I had to the outside world was the faint glow of my phone screen. It kept posting, it kept telling my story, but it wasn't my voice, it was his. He was writing my life, twisting it into something ugly, and I couldn't stop him. I watched as my life, my reputation, crumbled. One character at a time. I saw comments from people I knew, people I loved, saying awful things about me, my mom, my old teachers, even my high school crush. They all believed the lies. They believed the tweets. They believed the lies. They believed I was a killer. My heart broke a little more with each new comment. I felt so helpless, so betrayed. I wanted to explain, to tell them the truth, but I couldn't. I was cut off. Then, one evening, the typing stopped. The phone screen went dark. Silence. A heavy, thick silence. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My ears strained. I listened for anything, a creak, a whisper, nothing. I waited. My heart pounded against my ribs. What now? Hours passed. The sun set. The apartment grew cold. A chill ran down my spine. The darkness felt alive. It pressed in on me from all sides. Then, a soft scratching sound came from the kitchen, like nails on wood. It was slow, deliberate. My blood ran cold. I held my breath. My eyes darted around the dim room. Where was it coming from? It came again, louder this time, like something was trying to get in, or get out. The sound moved. It was closer now, in the living room. I backed away slowly, pressing myself against the wall. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. What was it? Was it David? Was it Saffron? My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. The scratching stopped, then a low growl. It was deep, rumbling. It shook the floor. It wasn't Saffron. It was something else, something much bigger, something unnatural. A shadow moved in the hallway. It was tall. Too tall to be a person. It seemed to stretch and twist like smoke. It was darker than the darkness around it. My breath hitched in my throat. I squeezed my eyes shut. I wished it was all a dream. I wished I could wake up in my bed with Saffron purring beside me. When I opened them, the shadow was closer. It had eyes, two glowing red dots in the darkness. They stared at me, cold and empty, like burning coals. It took a step, then another. Its footsteps were heavy, slow. Each step made the floorboards creak. The air grew colder around it. I could feel the chill on my skin. It wasn't David Thorne. It was something he had become, or something he had sent. It was the shadow that lived in my feed, the one that had taken over my life. It was the digital monster made real. It was here for me. I could feel its cold breath on my face. It smelled like old paper and something else. Something rotten like dirt and decay, and something else. Something metallic, like old blood. Then, a whisper. It wasn't the static voice from the TV. This was right next to my ear. You only told half the story, Alex. My body went numb. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. My voice was gone. My legs felt like they were glued to the floor. My eyes were wide, fixed on the red dots. It raised a hand. A large clawed hand. It was long and bony. It reached for my face. The claws looked sharp, like they could tear through anything. I closed my eyes again, waiting for the end. This was it. My story was over. But the touch never came. Instead, I heard a click, like a door unlocking, the front door. My eyes snapped open. The shadow was gone. The apartment was still dark, but the air felt lighter. The front door was ajar. A sliver of moonlight spilled into the hallway. I was free, but I didn't feel free. I felt empty, like a hollow shell, like a part of me had been ripped out. My grief for Saffron, my fear, my anger. It was all just gone. I stumbled out of the apartment, down the stairs, and into the night. I didn't know where I was going. I just ran. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs ached, until the city lights faded behind me. I ran until I couldn't run anymore. I ended up in a small town, far from Los Fondlens Spine, a place called Willow Creek. It was tiny, quiet, no internet cafes, no cell service. I changed my name. I cut off all ties. I tried to disappear, to become someone new. I got a new ID, a new driver's license. I used cash for everything. I still write, but now I write under a different name, about simple things, gardens, local history. I write for the Willow Creek Weekly. It's even smaller than the Gazette. Nothing that could ever hurt anyone, nothing that could ever twist a life. I avoid social media. I don't even own a smartphone. I live a quiet, lonely life. I'm always looking over my shoulder, always waiting for the next tweet, for the next sign, but sometimes late at night I hear a faint purring sound, and I see a flicker of black eyes in the shadows. It's just for a second, a quick flash, but it's enough. And I know, it's not over. It will never be over. Because the story I wrote, the one about David Thorne, was only half the truth, and the other half is still out there, waiting. It's still connected to me. And sometimes when I'm alone, I feel a cold whisper on my skin. Time to finish what we started, Alex. It's a promise, a threat, a reminder, and I know, deep down, that one day, my digital shadow will find me again. And this time, it won't just be my story that gets twisted. It will be me. It will take everything, my mind, my soul, my very being, and I'll be just another character in its twisted tale. Life in Willow Creek was quiet. Too quiet sometimes. I rented a small room above a bakery. The smell of fresh bread was nice, but it also made me think of David. I tried not to. My new name was Mark Jensen. It felt strange to say it, like I was playing a part. I kept to myself. I went to the library. I read old books, no screens, no internet. I walked the same paths every day, to the small general store, to the post office. The people in Willow Creek were kind. They smiled and said hello, but I kept my distance. I didn't want anyone to get close. I didn't want to bring my shadow here. I worked at the Willow Creek Weekly. It was a tiny paper, just me and an old lady named Mrs. Gable. She wrote about church suppers and lost dogs. I wrote about the weather and new flowers blooming. It was safe, it was boring, and that was exactly what I needed. But the quiet had a way of making my mind wander, especially at night. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling. The sounds of the town would fade, and then I'd hear it, a few faint taps, like fingers on a keyboard. It was always far away, always just out of reach, but it was there. I'd tell myself it was just the old building, the pipes, the wind, anything but him. One morning, I went to the library. I needed to look up some old town records for a story. The library had one computer. It was old and slow. It took forever to load anything. I typed in my search. The screen flickered. Then, a strange thing happened. The screen changed. It wasn't the town records anymore. It was a picture of me, from my old apartment. I was sitting at my desk, typing, just like I used to. My heart jumped into my throat. My hands froze on the keyboard. Then a line of text appeared below the picture. It was in that familiar, chilling font. "Still writing, Alex?" I gasped. I pulled my hands back like the keyboard was hot. I looked around the library. Empty. Just me. The old librarian was at her desk, sleeping. I slammed the computer shut. The sound echoed in the quiet room. I ran out of the library. My legs felt like they were running through water. I didn't stop until I was back in my room. I locked the door. I pulled the blind shut. I sat on my bed, shaking. It had found me, even here, without a phone, without a laptop. It had found a way. The next few days were worse. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every shadow seemed to stretch and twist. Every creak of the floorboards made me jump. I started seeing Saffron, just for a second, in the corner of my eye. A flash of orange fur. A quick glimpse of those black, empty eyes. She'd be sitting on the windowsill or curled up on my pillow. Then I'd blink, and she'd be gone. Just the empty space. I knew it wasn't real. My mind was playing tricks on me. It had to be. But the purring sound, that soft, faint purr, it was too real. It would come from under my bed, or from behind the closet door. Sometimes it sounded like it was right next to my ear. I started talking to myself more. "It's not real, Alex. It's not real." I'd whisper it over and over, trying to make myself believe it. One night, I was trying to sleep. The purring was loud. Too loud. It was coming from the foot of my bed. I could almost feel it vibrating through the mattress. I squeezed my eyes shut. I pulled the blanket over my head. Then a weight settled on my feet, like Saffron used to do. A heavy, cold weight. It pressed down on me. I held my breath. My heart was pounding. I could feel the cold seeping through the blanket. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. My throat was tight. I lay there for what felt like hours. The weight didn't move. The purring continued. Finally, just before dawn, the weight lifted. The purring faded. I threw the blanket off. My feet were cold. My whole body was shaking. There was nothing there. just the empty bed. I knew then that it wasn't just in my head. It was real. It was here. It was playing with me, like a cat plays with a mouse. I started carrying a small old flashlight with me everywhere. Even inside my room, I'd shine it into every dark corner, under the bed, inside the closet. I knew it was silly, but it made me feel a tiny bit safer. One afternoon, Mrs. Gable asked me to help her with the newspaper's old archives. They were in the dusty basement, boxes and boxes of old papers. As I was sorting through them, I found a stack of old Las Fondland Gazettes, my old paper, from 3 years ago. My stomach clenched. I tried to put them away quickly, but then I saw it. A headline. Local man dies in jail. It was David Thorne, my story, his death. I picked up the paper. My hands trembled. I tried to just glance at it, but then I saw a small article on the next page. It was about the woman, the one David had hurt. Her name was Sarah Jenkins. I remembered her. I had talked to her briefly for my story, but I hadn't dug deep enough. I had focused on David's side. The article in the old Gazette had more details I hadn't included. Sarah had been followed for weeks. She had received strange messages. They weren't just threats. They were about her deepest fears, her secrets. They sounded familiar, like the tweets I had received. My blood ran cold. David had done this to her, and I had made him sound like a good guy. I had left out the part where he was a monster, the part where he stalked and terrorized. I had twisted her truth, to make my story better, to make it more readable. The words from the tweet echoed in my mind. You only told half the story, Alex. And then the whisper. Time to finish what we started, Alex. I felt sick. A wave of guilt washed over me. It wasn't just a hacker. It was David. Or something that was him, something I had helped create. By hiding his darkness, I had let it grow. I had given it a shadow to live in. I sat there in the dusty basement, surrounded by old papers. The air felt heavy. I understood now. This wasn't just revenge for his death. It was revenge for the truth I had buried, the truth about him, and about me. I looked at the old article about Sarah Jenkins again. Her picture was small. Her eyes looked scared. I had ignored that fear. I had ignored her. I had been so focused on my comeback story that I forgot about the real people, the real pain, the real danger. I folded the paper carefully. I put it in my bag. I had to do something. I couldn't just run anymore. I had to face this. But what could I do? It was a digital shadow. How do you fight something like that? I went back to my room. I pulled out the old paper. I read every word about Sarah. I tried to remember everything David had told me, the things I had left out. He had seemed so charming, so sorry for his past. He had painted a picture of a changed man. But now, looking back, I remembered small things. A flicker in his eyes, a strange smile, a coldness that I had dismissed as shyness or sadness. I realized I had wanted to believe him. I had wanted a good story so badly. I had ignored the warning signs. I had ignored Sarah's fear. And now, his shadow was here. And it was my turn to be afraid. I started seeing Saffron more often. Not just quick flashes. She would sit on my chair, watching me, her black eyes unblinking. She wouldn't purr anymore. Just sit there. Still. Silent. Sometimes I'd reach out to touch her. My hand would go right through her. Just cold air. And then she'd be gone. It was like she was haunting me. A reminder of what I had lost. A reminder of what he had done. The scratching sounds came back, not just from the kitchen, from the walls, from under the floorboards, from inside the closet. It sounded like claws, dragging slowly, scraping. I'd jump up, flashlight in hand, shine it everywhere. Nothing, just the empty room and the sound of my own ragged breathing. I stopped sleeping. Every night was a battle against the sounds, against the shadows, against the feeling of being watched. I started to look thin. My eyes were sunken. My hands shook all the time. Mrs. Gable noticed. She asked if I was okay, if I was eating. I just nodded. Just a little tired, Mrs. Gable. I forced a smile. She looked at me with kind, worried eyes. She didn't press. But I knew she saw something. Something was wrong with me. One night, I was sitting at my small desk, trying to write a story about the town's history. My pen felt heavy. My mind was tired. Then, the small old radio on my desk crackled. It wasn't even turned on. Static, just like the hotel TV. My blood ran cold. Then, a voice. Software scratchy, but clear this time. You're learning, Alex, about the other half. It was David's voice. I remembered it, low and calm. I dropped my pen. It clattered on the desk. What do you want? I whispered. My voice was barely there. The static grew louder. Then, a low chuckle. The truth, Alex. All of it. Then the radio went silent, just a dead piece of plastic. I knew what it meant. He wanted me to tell the full story, the story of David Thorne, the monster, not the hero. But how? No one would believe me. I was canceled. I was a liar. And he was dead. How could I tell his story now? The next day, I went to the Willow Creek Library again. The old computer. I opened it. My hands were shaking. I typed in, David Thorne Los Fondlin Spine. The screen loaded, slowly. Then, the search results appeared, and right there at the top was a link, not to my old article, but to a new one, from a big national news site. It was titled, The Unseen Victim, Sarah Jenkins, and the Lies of a Local Reporter. My heart pounded. I clicked on it. The article was long. It talked about Sarah, her pain, her fear. It talked about David's true nature, his history of stalking, his dark past. And then it talked about my article. It said I had glossed over the facts. It said I had painted a false picture of a dangerous man. It didn't mention my name directly, but it talked about the reporter. And then I saw it, a quote, from me. I just wanted to make it a good story. I guess I got carried away. I never said that, not out loud, not to anyone. But it was there, in print, on the internet. My blood ran cold. He was still writing. He was still twisting my words. He was using my guilt against me, making me confess to things I didn't say. The comments below the article were brutal. People called me names. They said I was a disgrace, a fraud, a killer. I felt like I was back in Los Fondlin Spine, alone, hated. I closed the browser. I stood up. My legs felt weak. He wasn't just haunting me. He was destroying me, piece by piece. My new life in Willow Creek. My new name. It was all falling apart. I walked out of the library. The sun felt too bright. The air felt too heavy. I went back to my room. I sat on the floor, my head in my hands. What could I do? How could I fight this? The purring started again, faintly, from under my bed. Then a soft meow. It sounded like saffron, but wrong. I looked under the bed. Nothing. Just dust and shadows. But the purring grew louder, and then a small, dark shape moved. It wasn't Saffron. It was like a shadow of her, a dark, blurry outline. It crawled out from under the bed. It was small, like a kitten, but its eyes were jet black, and it moved in a jerky, unnatural way. It was made of shadows. It came closer, rubbing against my leg. I froze. I could feel its coldness. It was like touching ice. It purred, a deep, rumbling sound that vibrated through my bones. Then, it looked up at me, and its mouth opened, too wide, and David's voice came out, low and calm. Finish the story, Alex. Tell them everything. I scrambled back, hitting the wall. My heart was pounding. The shadow cat just sat there, watching me, its black eyes unblinking. I knew then. This was it. I couldn't run anymore. I had to tell the whole story, the real story, but not online, not where he could twist it. I had to write it down, on paper, with a pen. I grabbed a notebook. My hands were shaking, but I forced them to be steady. I started writing. Everything. From the beginning. About David Thorne, the charming baker, the hidden monster. About Sarah Jenkins, her fear, her truth. About my article, my ambition, my mistakes. About Saffron, her death, the black eyes, the purring. About the tweets, the locked apartment, the shadow. I wrote for hours. My hand ached. My mind felt clearer than it had in years. I wrote about the cold breath, the glowing red eyes, the clawed hand. I wrote about the click of the door, my escape, my new life, and about the whispers, the constant fear, the shadow that followed me. I wrote about the library computer, the new article, my twisted words. I wrote about the shadow cat, the purring, David's voice. I wrote until the sun came up, until my pen ran out of ink. I had filled the entire notebook, every page. I held it in my hands. It felt heavy, real. This was the truth, my truth. The shadow cat was gone. The room was quiet. I felt exhausted, but also lighter. I had faced it. I had written it all down. But what now? What would I do with the story? I couldn't publish it. No one would believe it. And he would find me. He would twist it again. I looked at the notebook. It was my confession, my warning. I decided to hide it. Somewhere safe. Somewhere he couldn't find it. Somewhere he couldn't twist it. I thought about the old bakery, the one I lived above. It had a big, old oven, a brick oven. It was very old. Maybe I could hide it there, in the walls. I waited until nightfall. The town was quiet. The bakery was closed. I snuck downstairs. The air smelled of old flour and yeast. I found a loose brick in the back of the oven. It was hidden. I pulled it out. It was dusty. There was a small, dark space behind it. I put the notebook inside. I pushed the brick back into place. It was hidden. Safe. For now. I went back to my room. I felt a strange mix of fear and peace. I had done what I could. I had told the truth. But the shadow was still out there. I knew it. I still heard the faint purring sometimes. I still saw the black eyes in the shadows. But it wasn't as strong now, not as constant. It was like writing it all down had weakened him. Or maybe, just maybe, it had freed me a little. I still live in Willow Creek. Still write for the weekly. I still avoid social media. I still don't own a smartphone. My life is quiet, lonely, but I'm not running anymore. I'm waiting for the day he comes back, because I know he will. He lives in my shadow, and the truth, once written, can never truly be buried. Sometimes when I'm alone, I feel a cold whisper on my skin. Time to finish what we started, Alex. But now, I have my own story, my own truth, and this time, I won't be silent. I'll fight back, with every word. You'd think living by the ocean would bring peace. I really did. I thought it would wash away everything bad, like waves smoothing out sand. But some things just stick. They hold on tight. You can't just scrub them clean. They cling to you. I bought this little cottage 3 years ago. It's in a small town. The town is called Santa Fe. I came here after I left everything behind. It was like a snake shedding its old skin. A new start. A desperate one. I told the lady who sold me the house my name was Barry Whitlow. It wasn't my real name back then. Not at all. But it is now. It has to be. It's the only name I answer to. The old name feels like a stranger. The place is super quiet. It's almost too quiet sometimes. You can hear your own thoughts, every single one. There are fences made of old wood. They are all gray and twisted. The ocean air did that to them. They look like old bones. Fog rolls in every morning. It's thick and soft, like a big wet blanket. It covers everything. It hides the world. You can hear the gulls crying. They are way out in the distance. They sound lonely sometimes, really lonely, like they lost something. I cook my own food, simple stuff mostly, fish and vegetables, nothing fancy, just enough to get by. I drink my coffee black, no sugar, no cream, just plain and strong. It helps me wake up. I just try to keep to myself, you know? That's the main thing. Don't bother anyone. Don't make waves. The people here are nice enough. They wave when you pass by, they talk about the weather or the fishing. They're friendly in that small town way, the kind that doesn't ask too many questions. And that's exactly what I needed. No questions, no digging around. Just quiet, just peace. Or what I hoped was peace. I spend my days doing easy things. I fix up old boats down by the dock. It's honest work. My hands feel useful. I carve little wooden toys, like birds and whales. They're small and smooth. They fit in my palm. I pretend I've always been this kind of guy. A quiet man. A man who works with his hands. A man with no past. That's the biggest pretend. It's a lie I tell myself every day. The sun would come up, bright and clean. It would shine on the water, make it sparkle. I'd walk down to the beach. The sand felt cool under my bare feet. The waves would whisper. I'd pick up shells, smooth, empty shells. They reminded me of how I wanted to be, cleaned out. I'd watch the fishing boats go out, little dots on the big ocean. They looked free. Sometimes I'd sit on my porch, just watch the fog roll in, or watch it burn off. I'd listen to the quiet of the town, the quiet of my own breathing. It was a good quiet, a safe quiet, or so I told myself, over and over. I'd go to the small grocery store. The lady at the counter, Mrs. Isabella, she'd always smile. She'd ask about Marley, my dog. Marley was a big, happy golden retriever. She was the only one who didn't ask questions. She just loved me, no matter what. She'd follow me everywhere, down to the dock, into the woods behind the house. She'd lay her head on my lap at night. Her fur was soft. Her breathing was steady. She made me feel like I belonged, like I was real, like Barry Whitlow was a real person. But the past, I've learned, doesn't just go away. It doesn't drown, not even with all this ocean around. It waits. It stays hidden, face down, like something lost in the mud. It bides its time. It holds its breath for a long, long time. And then one day, it just floats right up to the top. It started with a knock, just a few slow taps, on my front door. It was soft but sharp. It was late, way after midnight. The house was dark and still, so very still, the kind of still that makes you listen. I had been reading a book, an old, worn book, the kind that makes you forget things. The lamp on my table cast a soft glow. Marley was asleep by my feet, snoring softly. Few taps, but it wasn't loud, but it cut through the quiet, like a tiny blade. My heart started thumping, real hard, like a drum in my chest. It felt too loud. I listened hard, but there was only the sound of the ocean outside, the waves crashing, over and over. I thought maybe it was the wind, or a branch, but it felt different. It felt on purpose. I waited, my breath held tight in my throat, my eyes wide in the dim light. Then, nothing, just silence, the kind of silence that screams. I walked slowly to the door. My hand shook a little. I peeked through the little window beside it. Nothing. Just the dark night. No one was there. Only shadows dancing. The fog was thick outside. It clung to the trees, made everything blurry. I took a deep breath, a long, shaky breath. Then I opened the door. No one was there. Just the cool night air and the smell of salt. It felt empty. But then I looked down, right there on my porch, almost hidden in the shadows. It was a knife, a rusted switchblade, old and ugly. The rust was thick and red, like dried blood. And I knew it. My stomach dropped, like I'd fallen off a cliff. I knew that knife. It lay there, small, but heavy, like a rock in my chest. It was 12 years ago. I watched that exact knife. It slid into a man's ribs. It went in deep. It happened under the flickering broken lights, in a dark alleyway. The light buzzed and died. The alley smelled of trash and rain. It was cold, so cold. I was holding it. My hand was on the handle, pushing it. My fingers felt numb. My knuckles were white. My arm felt like lead. But I didn't kill him. He killed someone else. Right after, a quick, brutal move. The boy, he was just a kid. He looked so scared, his eyes wide. Gavin just smiled. A wide, terrible smile. He liked it. He liked the fear. But the blood, the mess, it still felt like mine, because I was the one who brought him there. I was the one who led him into that dark place, that terrible, dark place. I opened the door for him. I was supposed to be the lookout, just watch, just make sure no one saw. But I saw everything, and I couldn't unsee it. His name was Gavin Frost. He was my oldest friend, and my worst mistake, my biggest regret. We grew up together, like brothers. We shared everything, even our secrets. He was the reason I was here, pretending to be Barry, hiding, running from everything. They said he died in a fire in Baltimore, a big, terrible fire. The news showed the smoke. The warehouse burned for hours. The sky was red, the smell of burning. I saw the body, or what was left of it. It was burned bad, just a charred shape. I even identified it. It was supposed to be over, done, a closed chapter. I stood there, in the cold morgue, looking at that thing, and I said it was him. I wanted it to be him. I needed it to be him, so I could be free. But that knife, there was only one like it. Gavin had carved his initials right into the handle. It was his mark, his ugly, personal mark. They were still there, even though the wood was scorched black and rough. I could see them plain as day, unmistakable. A cold knot formed in my gut, a fear I thought was buried. I picked up the knife. My fingers brushed the cold metal. It felt heavy, too heavy. I brought it inside, locked the door, bolted it, as if a lock could stop him. I put the knife on the kitchen table, under the harsh light, stared at it. It was real. He was real, and he was here. The dreams started that very week. They came every night, like a sickness. They took over my sleep. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, my heart racing, pounding in my chest like it would break through. The dreams were always the same. The alley, the flickering light, the boy's wide eyes, then the fire, the heat, the smell of smoke filling my lungs, and Gavin's face, smiling, always smiling, even as the flames grew higher. I'd hear a voice. It wasn't loud, just a whisper, carried on the ocean breeze. Right through my open window, it called my real name, softly but clearly. Jonathan, it would say. Just that one word, over and over. It chilled me to the bone. It made my skin crawl, like bugs were under it, like something was trying to get in. I'd pull the blankets tight, bury my head in the pillow, but the whisper found me. Then I started hearing things, footsteps, outside the window, soft and slow, like someone walking on sand, dragging their feet, coming closer. I'd jump up, my heart pounding, but there was never anyone there, just the quiet night, just the sound of the waves, and my own ragged breathing. I'd check the locks, every window, every door, 3 times, 4 times. I'd stand by the window, staring out into the darkness, my eyes burning. Sometimes I'd look out at the cliffs, way out past my yard, and I'd see it, an outline, a tall, thin shape, standing right at the edge. So still, it would just stand there, still as a statue, looking right at my house. It was always at dawn or dusk, when the light was tricky. I'd blink, and it would be gone, just empty space, but it felt so real, too real. It was always watching, always waiting. I could feel its eyes on me. Then the letters started arriving. They just showed up. No stamp, no return address. Nothing, just there, on my porch, or tucked under my windshield wiper, or stuck in my mailbox. They were always torn from a notebook, the paper thin and rough, like cheap paper. Each one was tucked inside a clear plastic sleeve, like someone wanted to keep it dry, to make sure I got it. The writing was sharp. It was a messy, hurried scrawl, but I knew it. I hadn't seen it in over 10 years, but it was Gavin's, no doubt, his terrible handwriting. The first one said, "I survived, Jonathan. Did you?" Just those few words. My hands shook so hard, I almost dropped it. The paper rattled. It felt hot in my hand. I didn't know what scared me more. The idea that Gavin was alive, after all this time, or the idea that someone else knew what happened that night, in the warehouse, knew my secret. The second letter came a few days later. It was shorter, just one line. The fire wasn't enough, was it? It made my stomach clench. He knew I thought he was dead. He knew I had tried to bury him. Back then, Gavin and I, we were like ghosts. We worked for bad men. Men whose names never showed up on any papers. Men who liked the dark. They liked things hidden. We were small-time fixers. We did dirty jobs. The kind no one talks about. The kind that stick to your soul. Gavin was always colder than me. He didn't care about hurting people, not one bit. He enjoyed it. I still flinched when bones broke. It made my stomach hurt, made me sick. I felt it deep inside. But Gavin, he just smiled at it. He liked it. He liked the fear in people's eyes. He liked seeing them squirm. It made him happy. It made him feel powerful. Then he snapped. It happened so fast. One moment he was talking. The next, he slit that boy's throat, right there in front of me, like it was nothing, just a quick cut. The boy fell, a gurgling sound, his blood spread on the dirty concrete, and then Gavin torched the whole building, to cover it up, to burn the evidence, to burn everything. He poured gasoline. He laughed as the flames licked up the walls. That's when I knew. I wasn't tough like him. I never was. I was just weak. I was just a coward with dirty hands, caught in his mess, trapped. I ran, I changed my name, I found some people, important people, and I told them what I knew, everything, all the ugly truths. I testified quietly. I gave them names, dates, places, all the dirty details. They gave me a new life, a new name, in exchange for my silence. They promised me Gavin died in that fire. They promised me he was gone, forever. They were wrong, so terribly wrong. The letters proved it. He was back. A week later, the birds stopped singing. It was weird, really weird. Usually they were chirping all morning, loud and happy, but it was just quiet. Too quiet. A strange, heavy quiet, like the world was holding its breath. The silence was heavier than any noise. It pressed down on me. I went out to get some wood for the fire. That's when I saw her. Marley, my dog. She's a big, shaggy golden retriever. My best friend. My only friend here. She was tied to a tree near the woodshed. She was alive, thank goodness. But she was whimpering, a low, scared sound. Her whole body was shaking. Her eyes were wide with fear. She was terrified. She looked at me for help. I knelt down and hugged her. She pressed against me, still shaking. And then I saw it, on her collar. Someone had scratched a crude X into it. It was deep, ugly, like a wound, a fresh, angry mark. It was the same symbol, the same one Gavin used to tag his messages, his warnings. He always used it, his personal mark, his signature. My blood ran cold. He was here. He was really here. He had touched Marley. He had been so close, too close. He was inside my world. I brought Marley inside, held her close. She wouldn't stop shaking. I packed a bag, just a small one. My hands were shaking so bad, I could barely zip it up. I thought about leaving, right then, just getting in my truck and driving away. But I knew it wouldn't matter. If he was really here, if he had found me, there'd be no running, not this time, no escape, not ever again. He would follow me. He would always find me. Like a shadow, a dark, hungry shadow. The only way out was through. I had to face him. I had to end it. So I stopped packing, and I started digging into the ashes of my past, the one I tried so hard to bury, the one that wouldn't stay buried. I found a number, an old cop in Baltimore, a guy I once bribed, a long time ago. He owed me a big favor, a debt that was long overdue. His name was Detective Miller. I called him. My voice was shaky, but I tried to sound tough. I asked him about Gavin Frost. The phone rang for a long time. Then a gruff voice answered. He sounded surprised. He paused for a long time. A heavy silence. Frost, he grunted. Thought he was long gone, burnt to a crisp. He said Gavin's body was unrecognizable from the fire. They used dental records to tell who it was. The fire was bad, Jonathan, he said. He used my real name. It stung. I asked him about the dentist, the one who did the records. He paused again. Longer this time. I could hear him sigh. He said that dentist vanished about a year after the fire. Dr. Evans, he mumbled. Good man, just gone. They called it a suicide. He just disappeared. No one saw him again. Jumped off a bridge, they said. Miller's voice was flat, but no body ever found. But he said it in a way that made me know no questions were asked. It was all covered up. A big, messy cover-up. A secret kept by powerful men. Look, Jonathan, he said. Some things are best left buried. You know that. I hung up the phone. My hand was shaking. The line went dead. The deeper I dug, the more holes I found, like a rotten piece of wood, full of wormholes. Nothing was what it seemed. Nothing was real. My whole life was a lie. The people who promised me safety, they lied. They all lied. Then came the photos. They showed up one night. Someone slid them under my door. It was 3 a.m. I heard the soft scrape on the wood, a chilling sound. It woke me up. My heart was pounding. I knew what it was. Before I even picked them up, I just knew. I looked at them. My hands trembled. They felt cold and clammy. The first one was me, at the grocery store, buying milk. Just a normal day. The next was me, fixing the boat, my back to the camera, working. Then another, me, sleeping in my bed. My eyes were closed. I was vulnerable. Someone had been inside my house, while I slept, watching me, breathing my air, and in the last one. He's in the window, my window, right outside, staring, right at me, and he's smiling. A wide, terrible smile, a smile that made my blood run cold. He was watching me sleep. He was always there. I didn't sleep for days after that. I just sat up, staring at the window. Every shadow looked like him. Every creak of the house was his footstep. My coffee tasted like ash. My food felt like sand in my mouth. I started leaving the lights on, all of them. Even when I left the house, I went to the cliffs, where I thought I saw him before. The wind was roaring, whipping my hair around. Salt was in the air, stinging my eyes. A storm was brewing, way out over the ocean. The sky was dark and heavy. It felt like the world was closing in, like a trap, a cage with no way out. The waves crashed below, white foam against the dark rocks. He was there, standing at the edge, just like in my dreams. He looked older, thinner, like a shadow stretched too long, like a ghost. His clothes were dark, blending with the stormy sky, but he was very much alive. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't move. Hey, Jonathan, he said. His voice was rough, like gravel. Long time. He took a step closer. His eyes were fixed on mine. I froze. I couldn't speak. The name, my real name, sounded wrong, coming from him. It felt like a punch to the gut, a painful reminder. He took another step forward. His eyes were dark and empty, like black holes. You left me to die, he said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, cold and hard. I thought you were dead, I finally managed to say. My voice was a whisper. He just stared at me, a cold, hard stare. It went right through me. Then why do you look so scared? He asked. A small, cruel smile played on his lips. I didn't have an answer. My mind was blank, just the crushing weight of 1,000 regrets, all the bad choices, all the fear. It all came crashing down. I burned for 12 minutes, he said, his voice strangely calm, like he was talking about the weather. Before I blacked out, he looked down at his hands, then back at me. His eyes were burning. They peeled my skin like wallpaper, but I lived. He held up his hands. They were scarred, twisted, like old tree roots. Every day, he said. Every single day I felt it. The fire, the pain. His eyes narrowed. They were like sharp little knives, pointed right at me. You tried to erase me, Jonathan. You tried to make me disappear. You thought you could just walk away, start fresh, be someone new. He took another step closer. He was so close now. I could smell the ocean on him. And something else, something burnt, like old smoke. Now I'm here to do the same to you. He pulled something from his pocket. It was the same knife, the rusted switchblade, the one I'd found on my porch. It gleamed dully. But first, he whispered, his voice soft, almost gentle. You'll watch yourself disappear. His smile grew wider. He laughed, a dry, rattling sound, like stones rubbing together. What followed was madness, pure, total madness, weeks of being watched. I could feel his eyes on me, even when I was alone. It was like a constant chill down my spine, a cold hand, always there. I'd be in the kitchen, and I'd feel it, that prickle on my neck. I'd turn around fast. Nothing. Just the empty room. Doors I knew I'd locked would be unlocked when I came back. Not just unlocked. Sometimes they'd be ajar, just a tiny bit. Food would be missing from my fridge, just little things. But they added up. A carton of milk, a piece of bread, enough to make me doubt myself. Clocks would be changed. My alarm clock, the kitchen clock, always a few minutes off, just enough to mess with my head. I'd set them right. Then the next day, they'd be wrong again. My tools would be moved, my carving knives, my wrenches. I'd find them in strange places, tucked under my pillow or in my shoes. He wasn't trying to hurt me yet. Not with his hands. Not with the knife. He was dismantling me, piece by piece, like a ghost. Slowly replacing the man I'd built myself into. Taking over. The new Barry Whitlow. The quiet man by the ocean. He was being chipped away. He was becoming Jonathan again. The man I hated. The man I ran from. I stopped sleeping. The dreams were too much. The whispers were too loud. I'd sit in the dark. Marley curled up beside me, her soft fur a comfort. But even she was different. She'd whimper sometimes, stare at empty corners. Her ears would twitch, like she heard things I couldn't. I tried to talk to the police, the local ones. They were nice. They listened, but their eyes were kind of blank, like they didn't get it. "Someone's messing with you, Mr. Whitlow," the sheriff said. He scratched his head. "Kids, probably. Or some drifter." He didn't believe me. He didn't see the fear. He didn't know my past. I started leaving notes for myself, little reminders. Door locked. Clock set. Knife on table. But even those notes would disappear, or new ones would appear. Written in Gavin's messy scrawl, saying things like, "You're losing it, Jonathan." My world was shrinking. My cottage felt like a cage. The ocean, which used to bring peace, now felt like a giant, dark mirror, showing me all the things I tried to bury, all the ugliness. I stopped going to the dock, stopped fixing boats, stopped carving. My hands shook too much. My mind was a mess. I just sat and waited. For the next thing. For him. The final message came the night the power died. The whole town went dark. It was pitch black in my cottage. I couldn't see my hand. The storm had finally hit. The wind howled like a hungry animal. Rain lashed against the windows. The house groaned and creaked. I heard the soft scrape under my door again. That familiar sound, even over the storm. It was clear, precise. I didn't even need to look. I knew it was another letter. I fumbled for my emergency lantern. The beam cut through the black. I saw the white envelope, lying on the floor, just inside the door. I picked it up, my fingers numb. I pulled out the paper. I lit a candle. The flame flickered. The message was short. "Tomorrow, we trade." Just those 3 words. My breath hitched. Trade what? My life? My identity? And then? Nothing. No Gavin. No knife appearing on my porch. No footsteps outside my window. No more letters. Just silence. A terrifying silence. The storm passed. The sun came out. The birds started singing again. It was like nothing had happened, like it was all a bad dream. Weeks passed, then a month, 2 months. The quiet returned, but it was a different kind of quiet, a heavy, waiting quiet, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something. I started to think maybe he had left. Maybe he had just wanted to scare me. Or maybe he had given up, gone away, for good this time. Maybe he had gotten what he wanted, to break me, to make me remember. I started to breathe a little easier. I even started fixing boats again, carving toys, trying to be Barry, trying to believe it, trying to forget. I went back to my routine, the walks on the beach, the coffee, the quiet. But it wasn't the same. The peace felt thin, like a sheet of ice. I was always listening, always watching, for the next sign. Marley seemed to relax, too. She stopped whimpering at night. But sometimes, I'd catch her staring at the door, her ears perked, like she knew something was still out there, waiting. Until one foggy morning, The fog was so thick, you could barely see your hand. Right in front of your face, it was a white wall. Everything felt muffled. The air was heavy, wet. It clung to my clothes. The police knocked. Not just one cop, but two. My heart jumped into my throat. Sheriff Brody and his deputy, Mike. Their faces were serious. They said a body had washed up near the dock. It was decomposed, they said. Had been in the water for a while. "We need you to come identify it, Mr. Whitlow," Brody said. His voice was low. My legs felt like jelly, but I nodded. I had to. They brought me to see it. It was wrapped in a tarp, a dark, wet tarp. The smell of salt and something else, something rotten. They pulled it back, slowly. The smell hit me first. It was bad, really bad. My stomach churned. The body was clutching something. A switchblade. My switchblade. The one with Gavin's initials. And my fingerprints, no doubt. It was rusted, but the initials were still there. The face, what was left of it, was mine, my real face, Jonathan's. The eyes were gone, just black holes, but the shape, the jawline, it was me, the man I used to be, the man I tried to kill. I stared into the blackened eyes of my old life, the life I ran from. The man I used to be, he was right there, dead. My breath hitched. A cold wave washed over me, and the cops looked at me, Barry, like they weren't sure who they were talking to anymore. Their eyes were confused. They looked at the body, then at me. "Mr. Whitlow?" Sheriff Brody asked. His voice was soft. I just nodded. My throat was tight. I couldn't speak. They wrote things down, asked me questions, my name, my address. I answered them, calmly, like Barry Whitlow. They said they'd be in touch. They took the body away. I walked back to my cottage. The fog still thick, the air still heavy. I'm still here, in this cottage, by the ocean. I'm still Barry. I still fix boats. I still carve toys. Marley still sleeps by my feet. But sometimes I wonder, I really do. Who was that body? Was it really Jonathan? Did Gavin drown trying to become me? Did he try to take my place and fail? Did he try to make the trade? To become Barry? And the ocean took him? Or did I die trying to become someone else? Did Jonathan really die that night? In that alley? Or in that fire? Or when I left him behind? Did he die when I buried him? When I took on a new name? And if I did, if Jonathan is truly gone, who exactly is living in this skin now? Who am I? The quiet is back. But it's not the same. It's a different quiet. It's the quiet of a question that has no answer, a question that waits, like the past, like the ocean, forever. They say the world has rules, things we can measure, right? Things that always stay the same. I've believed that my whole life, you know? It's what I teach every single day. My name is Julian Reese. I'm a physics teacher at Hemsley Institute. It's a really old school, way up in Vermont. Trees are everywhere around it, thick and green. The school has all these old traditions. I've worked there for 13 years now. My days were pretty much all the same. Chalk dust on my clothes, always. Writing math on big glass walls. Students who ask way too many questions. Paperwork that no one ever reads. It was all very safe, very calm, very planned out, every single day. Very logical, like a good equation. My life was like a perfectly solved problem. No surprises, no sudden changes. I liked it that way. I really did. I liked knowing what came next. I liked feeling in control of things. I woke up at the same time. The alarm clock never failed me. It was always set for 6 a.m. sharp. I drank coffee from the same mug. It was a chipped old thing, my favorite. The taste was always just right. I walked the same path to my classroom. The gravel crunched under my shoes. The air always smelled like pine trees. The smell of old books and wood filled the air. It was comforting, like a warm blanket. It was the smell of knowledge, of order. I loved that smell, you know. It told me everything was okay. Everything was where it should be. I taught about gravity and light. I taught about how things move, how the universe works, step by step. It all made sense, you see. It all fit together perfectly. There were no loose ends, no mysteries. I could explain anything almost, if you gave me enough time, and the right numbers, of course. My students would ask tough questions, and I would always have an answer, or at least a way to find one. That's what physics is, really. A way to understand the world, to make sense of the chaos, to find the constants, the things that don't change, like the speed of light, always the same, or gravity, always pulling us down. It was a good life, a quiet life, a life built on solid ground, on facts and figures, on truth. Or so I thought back then. Before that one night, I tell you, the night of the party. It was a Friday, I remember it clear. The school year was ending soon, almost done. The air was warm, a hint of summer. All my student papers were graded, finally. A huge stack of them, all done. It felt like a big weight lifted. I had a bottle of good whiskey. It was waiting in my office drawer, just for me. A small reward for a long year. I was thinking about going home, maybe reading a book or just relaxing, putting my feet up, no more grading. I pictured my quiet apartment, the old armchair, the soft lamp, just peace after a busy week. That's when Ellen came in without knocking. She always did that, just walked right in. She was our department helper, always busy. She just walked right in like she owned the place. Her usual way, no fuss, no greetings. She held a stack of papers, as always. "We're throwing you a party," she said, flatly. Her voice was flat, like she was really tired, like she'd said it 100 times already. She didn't even look up from her papers, just spoke to the air, almost. "For what?" I asked her, totally confused. I didn't have a clue what she meant. A party for me? That was strange. I never had parties, never wanted them. "Your big research money," she said, looking bored. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. She finally looked at me, a blank stare. $1.2 million, Julian. Her eyes were dull, like old glass. "That doesn't just happen every day, you know." She raised an eyebrow at me. It was a lot of money. I knew that. More money than I'd ever seen. It meant new equipment for the lab. It meant years of quiet, focused work. Years of proving my theories, making them real. But I don't really like parties, never have. They make me feel awkward, out of place. I'd rather be in my office, with my books. I mumbled something about being busy, about having too much to do. She just stared at me, unblinking. They still made me go, no way out. Ellen just stared at me until I nodded. She said it was important for the school. "It's a big deal, Julian," she said. "You have to be there for the dean." I sighed, knowing I couldn't argue. The party was set for 8 o'clock that night. It was in the East Atrium, a huge old hall. We almost never used it, only for big school events. It was usually locked, dusty and dark. I'd only been in there a few times. It felt like a place from another time, like it was stuck in the past somehow. The air was always cold in there. Even in summer it felt chilly. I walked over there slowly that night. My stomach felt a little jumpy. I just wanted to get it over with. When I walked in, it was lit by candles. Hundreds of them I saw everywhere. They flickered, making shadows dance on the walls. The light was soft, but it made things jump. Shadows stretched and shrank, like living things. The ceiling was really high, lost in the dark. I couldn't see where it ended, just blackness. It felt like the room went on forever. The air was thick, heavy somehow. The sounds in there were strange, not right. The moment I walked in, it felt off, really off. Not like socially awkward off, you know? Not like when you walk into a party and don't know anyone. It felt wrong in the air, like the whole room was wrong. A cold feeling, like someone left a door open. But it was inside, deep inside the room. The air hummed, a low, deep sound. It wasn't a sound I could hear with my ears. I couldn't quite hear it, just felt it, like a sound just below my ears, vibrating. It made my teeth feel funny, like they buzzed. It went right through me, a strange tremor. The candles were real, not electric. Their flames danced, tall and thin. They seemed to sway to that hum. No music was playing, not a single note. Just that low hum and the quiet. It was too quiet, really. No chatter, no laughter, no clinking glasses. No drinks were out, no food either. Just teachers standing around, stiff and quiet. They were all facing the center of the room. Their faces were all serious, no smiles. They looked like they were waiting for something, waiting for someone to tell them what to do, like statues, frozen in place. "You all look like a cult," I joked, trying to lighten it. I forced a laugh, a little too loud. It sounded fake even to my own ears. No one even smiled. No one laughed at all. Their faces were blank, like stone. Their eyes just stared, not seeing me. It made my joke feel stupid, out of place. A cold shiver went down my back. This wasn't funny, not one bit. Then I saw Dean Wallace, the head of the school. He stood in the middle, facing me. He wore a dark robe, long and heavy. It looked like something from an old movie, like a monk's robe, but darker. Ellen wore one too, a matching dark robe, and other teachers did, all dressed the same. It wasn't a joke, it was serious. My stomach dropped, a cold knot. This wasn't a party, not at all. This was something else, something I didn't know, and I didn't like it, not one bit. My heart started to beat faster, a little flutter, then a hard thump. I felt a prickle of sweat on my neck. "Is this some kind of joke?" I asked, my voice shaky. I tried to make it sound firm, but it wasn't. It came out as a whisper, almost. Dean Wallace gave a small, strange smile. It didn't reach his eyes, not at all. His eyes were old and very, very tired. But there was something else in them too. Something I couldn't quite name. A deep, knowing look, like he saw everything. "You've studied so much, Julian," he said quietly. His voice was soft, but it held something cold, like the sound of ice cracking. It sent another shiver through me. "You've thought so hard all your life." He took a step closer, slowly. His robe rustled on the stone floor. "Always looking for things that stay the same." He paused, and the hum in the air grew louder. It pressed on my ears, a heavy weight. My head felt like it was filling up. "Tonight, you'll meet the one thing." His words hung in the air, cold and still. They seemed to freeze the very air. The one thing that no math can explain. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My mind raced, trying to find an answer, trying to find a logical reason for this. "Is this like joining a club?" I asked, trying again. My voice was a little higher now. I was trying to make sense of it, to make it normal, to put it in a box I understood. He took a step closer to me, his eyes fixed. They were like black holes pulling me in. They seemed to see right through me. "It's a gift," he said, his voice a whisper. It was barely audible, but it filled the room. A shiver went down my spine, a cold one. It started at my neck and ran all the way down. My skin felt like goosebumps all over. I wanted to turn and walk away right then, to run out of that strange, cold room. My feet felt heavy, stuck to the floor. My mind screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move, not even a little bit. It was like my feet were glued down. They started to make a circle around me. Slowly, deliberately, they closed in. Their dark robes swished softly on the floor. The candlelight made their shadows long. They seemed to stretch and grow, surrounding me. I tried to walk backward, to escape. My hands reached out, trying to find something. A wall, a pillar, anything to hold on to. But someone closed the heavy atrium door. It made a soft click, a final sound, like a lock snapping shut, trapping me. I was trapped in there, totally stuck. My breath hitched in my throat. A wave of panic washed over me. I couldn't believe this was happening. The air grew thick, hard to breathe. My chest felt tight like a band around it. My heart beat faster, a frantic bird. It hammered against my ribs, loud. "Julian Reese," Ellen said loudly, her voice echoing. It bounced off the high ceiling, sounding strange, like a voice from far away or from a dream. She was reading from an old paper, thin and brittle. It looked like animal skin, stretched and dried. The edges were ragged, very old. The writing on it was in a strange script. Symbols I didn't know, twisting lines. "Born into reason," she read, her eyes on the paper. Her voice was flat, but it carried through the hall. "Raised to doubt everything you see. Blind to what you can't see with your eyes." She looked up at me for a second, her eyes empty, like all the life had gone out of them. "But chosen by what no one knows." Her gaze was chilling, like a dead fish. "Enough," I said, my voice sharp and loud. It cracked a little, but I didn't care. I needed them to stop, to listen. "This is crazy. What are you doing?" I felt a desperate need to make them see, to make them understand how wrong this was. "I don't know what game this is," I told them. I looked from Ellen to Dean Wallace, then around. My eyes darted from face to face. "But I don't like it, not one bit." They ignored me, their faces still blank, like they didn't even hear my words, like I wasn't even there, standing in front of them. It was like talking to a wall. They just stared, unblinking. Then they started to sing. They started to sing then, a low murmur. It wasn't like normal singing, not a tune. It was chanting, deep and rhythmic. Not in Latin, not in any language I knew. It was harsh, guttural sounds, twisting my gut. Sounds that made my stomach churn and twist. It was like a growl, deep and animal-like. It hurt my ears, but also my insides. The hum in the air grew even louder. It vibrated through the floor, through my bones. The room got very cold, suddenly, sharply. It happened so fast, like a switch flipped. The kind of cold that bites, that hurts. It wasn't just cold air, it was something else. It felt like the cold was alive, reaching for me. My breath came out like smoke, white clouds. I could see it in the air, swirling around me. It looked like ghosts, dancing in the candlelight. My teeth started to chatter. I couldn't stop them. My whole body shook, a terrible tremble. I hugged myself, trying to get warm, but the cold was too deep, too strong. It went right into my bones. And then the air broke. I swear it did. I don't mean like, in a way of speaking, you know? Like a bad mood, or a tense moment. I mean it really broke, like a window shattering. The sound was like 1,000 tiny bells, but sharp, painful, like broken glass. The space around me cracked, splintered. It splintered into pieces, like broken glass. But it wasn't glass. It was the air itself. The very fabric of the room was tearing apart. I could see breaks in everything, the walls, the floor. The cracks spread like spider webs. They glowed with strange light. Cracks of colors I didn't know, impossible colors. Colors that hurt my eyes to look at. Colors that shouldn't exist, not in our world. Like purple that was also green, and blue that was red. Shadows I couldn't name, shifting and deep. They moved in the cracks, like things hiding. Things that were not meant to be seen. Things that twisted and writhed. I fell down on my knees. My legs gave out. The floor felt like it was moving under me. Like the whole room was swaying, spinning. I wanted to scream out loud, to yell for help, to call for anyone, for a normal person. But no sound came out. Not a single peep. My throat was tight, choked with fear. My lungs burned, desperate for air. Only a ringing noise, high and pure, like a drill in my brain, right behind my eyes. It felt like it was hitting every tiny part of me. A constant piercing sound. My head throbbed, a steady, painful beat. Each throb was like a hammer inside my skull. My vision swam, everything blurry. The air shimmered, like heat waves off a road. But it was cold, so cold it burned my skin. Like putting my hand on dry ice, that kind of burn. My eyes watered, blurring the terrible sight. I squeezed them shut, but it didn't help. The ringing, the cold, it was all inside me. In the cracks, something moved. On the other side. It was on the other side of everything. I knew it. On the other side of the broken air, the torn reality. A dark shape, growing larger. It looked like a man, sort of, a shape. But it was much taller, impossibly tall. Taller than the ceiling, taller than the hall. It seemed to bend the space around it. Its body was thin, like a stretched shadow, like a drawing made with a single thin line. So thin it looked like it would snap. Its head was too smooth, no hair, no bumps. Like polished stone, dark and featureless. No nose, no mouth. Just a smooth, dark surface. It was utterly blank, utterly wrong. And its eyes. Oh, its eyes. They weren't eyes at all, not like ours, not human eyes, not animal eyes. They were like deep holes, black and endless, like pits where light died, where nothing lived. They pulled at me, like a strong current, like a black hole drawing me closer. It leaned forward from the other side slowly. From the other side of everything, of reality. It moved without sound, without effort, like it was floating, not walking. And it saw me. I felt its gaze like ice. It was like 1,000 needles piercing me, right into my soul, it felt like. Dean Wallace stopped chanting, his voice cut off. He froze, his mouth open, silent. His eyes were wide, staring at the thing. The others stopped too. The room went totally quiet. The hum in the air stopped, leaving a heavy silence. The only sound was my own ragged breathing and the frantic beating of my heart. The figure spoke then. Its mouth didn't move, but the words came right into my head, clear as day, like it was speaking inside my brain, directly. It wasn't a sound, but a thought, a command. "You have studied the rules," the voice said. It was cold, like ice in my thoughts, chilling me. It felt ancient, older than anything, older than the school, older than the trees, older than the earth itself. But you never asked who wrote them. The words echoed in my skull, shaking me. They made my teeth ache, my head spin. My nose started to bleed. Warm blood ran down my face. It felt thick and sticky, a strange warmth. It dripped onto my shirt, dark red stains. A small, dark river on my white shirt. I tried to crawl away, to get some distance. My hands scraped the old stone floor. The rough surface dug into my palms. I moved toward the door, my hands scraping the floor. Every inch was a struggle, a desperate fight. My muscles screamed, but I kept going. I just wanted to get out, to escape this nightmare, to be back in my safe office with my equations, to be anywhere but here, in this horror. My heart was pounding, a drum in my chest. It beat so hard I thought it would burst. I could hear it in my ears, louder than anything. Every breath was a struggle, sharp and painful, like breathing broken glass. Suddenly, the figure stepped through the broken air. It didn't break the wall, didn't make a hole. It just changed the wall, rewrote it somehow, like it wasn't even there, just a thought, like the wall was made of smoke, not stone. It moved with no effort, no sound, and then it was in the room, right there with us. It was huge, filling the space, casting long shadows. The candlelight flickered, trying to fight it, but the shadows just grew, swallowing the light. It towered over us, a dark mountain. And then everyone else started to laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh, not joyful at all. It was a twisting sound, harsh and wrong, like rusty metal scraping, or dry leaves crunching. A sound that made my skin crawl. Their bodies moved in strange ways, jerking, like puppets on broken strings, twitching. Their limbs bent at impossible angles. Bones made popping noises, loud and sickening. Each pop was like a twig snapping close by. A wet, horrible sound. Their spines bent backward, impossibly far. Further than any human body could bend, like they were made of rubber, not bone, like they were puppets, pulled by strings. Strings I couldn't see, invisible to my eyes. Strings that pulled them into terrible shapes, their faces twisted into awful smiles, their mouths stretched wide, too wide, showing too many teeth, sharp and white. Their eyes, once blank, now glowed with a dark light. A red, angry light, like dying coals. It was the same light I saw in the cracks. "You invited me," it said, booming in my mind. The words were loud, they shook my whole body, they vibrated through my bones, rattling me. My teeth clacked together, a painful sound. My head felt like it would explode. "He is the gate." The words were a command, a declaration. They filled every corner of my thoughts. "Who?" I begged it, my voice a raw whisper. My throat hurt, burning from the effort. It felt like I was tearing something inside. They all turned their heads, slowly, unnaturally, like their necks were stiff, creaking. Their eyes, once blank, now glowed with a dark light. That terrible burning red light. They pointed their fingers, long and bony, their arms stretched out, impossibly long, right at me, all of them. Their smiles widened, showing too many teeth. A cold dread filled me, worse than anything, worse than the cold, worse than the pain. It was the dread of knowing, of understanding. The thing reached out, one long, smooth finger. It came toward me, slowly, like a dream, like a shadow stretching, reaching. It was so close, I could feel the cold from it. It touched my forehead, just a light brush. It felt like ice, then fire, then nothing. A sudden, sharp shock, then emptiness. Then a flood of everything, all at once. And then everything changed, all at once. I saw everything, not just in my mind. It was real, more real than anything before, more real than the floor beneath me, more real than the air I breathed. All the different times, stretching back forever, like a long, thin thread, unwinding. I saw the beginning, before anything was, and the end, when nothing would be left. All the different chances, paths not taken, roads I could have walked, lives I could have lived, every choice, every tiny moment, all the different worlds, countless and strange. Worlds made of light, worlds made of shadow, worlds that twisted and turned, impossible. Worlds where the rules were different, worlds where physics didn't apply. I saw myself being born, a tiny, screaming thing, a helpless baby, small and soft. My mother's face so young and kind. Then split into pieces, like a broken mirror. Each piece a different me, a different life, scattered across time and space. Then broken apart, again and again. Shattered into dust, then put back together. But not quite right, never quite right. Then put back together, wrong and twisted. Like a puzzle with the wrong pieces. A monstrous, impossible puzzle. I saw my body lying on a cold stone table, in a place I didn't know, ancient and dark, a place of rough stone and deep shadows. There were symbols carved into the stone. My soul was like a letter, thin and fragile, a piece of paper, easily torn. It fluttered, like a bird caught in a storm, handed from one thing to another, a transaction, like a trade, a deal being made, a terrible silent exchange. Things that wore time like clothes, like a jacket, things that were older than the stars. They had no faces, just shapes of power. Time was just a costume for them. I saw it. They moved through ages, unchanging and vast. They were always there, always watching, always pulling the strings, writing the rules. I screamed until my throat hurt, tearing. I screamed until it tore, raw and bleeding. My lungs burned, desperate for air. No sound came out, just a raw, painful gasp. My body convulsed, shaking uncontrollably, like I was having a seizure, out of control. My muscles twitched, my limbs jerked. The vision was too much, too real, too vast. It was everything, and it was nothing. It was the truth. And it was madness. My mind couldn't hold it all. Then, darkness. A deep, silent, empty dark, like falling into a well, endless and black. A blessed nothingness, for a moment. I woke up the next morning, slowly. My head ached, a dull, heavy throb. My whole body felt stiff and sore. I was in my own office on the floor. My neck was stiff, my back hurt. My clothes were rumpled, stained with blood. The sun was shining in through the window. It felt warm on my face, a normal warmth, the kind of warmth that means safety, but I didn't feel safe, not anymore. The candles were all gone, vanished. There was no sign of a party, no mess, no wax strips, no strange smells. Nothing was out of place, everything neat. My office was just as I had left it. My books were stacked, my papers tidy. It was like it had all been a terrible dream, a nightmare that felt too real. But I knew it wasn't, deep inside. The memory burned, sharp and clear. I ran to the east atrium, my legs shaking. My heart pounded with every step. Each beat was a reminder of the night. The door was locked tight, solid and old. I rattled the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I pushed, I pulled, but it stayed shut. The hall was clean, silent, and empty. Just like it always was, quiet and dusty. The air was still, no hum, no cold. It looked perfectly normal, perfectly safe. Too normal, too safe. I felt a cold dread creep over me. I asked about Dean Wallace, my voice trembling. I went to other teachers, to the school secretary. My words came out in a rush, stumbling. I asked about Ellen, describing them. Their dark robes, their blank faces, the strange party, the chanting. No one knew who I meant, not a single person. They looked at me strangely, with worried eyes, like I was making it up or going crazy. They asked if I was feeling okay. They said I looked tired, pale. They suggested I take a break, go home. It was like they were never there, never existed, like I had imagined them all. My mind reeled, trying to make sense of it, trying to fit the pieces together. But the pieces just wouldn't fit. It was like trying to solve a puzzle, but half the pieces were missing. I checked the school records, the old ones, the ones for teachers, going back years. I spent hours in the dusty archives. My fingers traced the faded ink. No one named Dean Wallace, no record. No one named Ellen, nowhere to be found. It was like they were erased from time, like they had never walked these halls. I felt a chill, deeper than the cold in the atrium. I looked up the East Atrium's history, deep in the archives. In an old leather-bound book, I found it. The pages were brittle, yellowed with age. It said it was closed, sealed since the year 1926, almost 100 years ago. There had been a fire, it said, a long time ago. A terrible fire that night. The ink was smudged, hard to read. An unauthorized ritual, the book stated plainly. 11 people died, all in that one night. All in that very hall where I had been. The same night, the same place. All the names were blurred out, smudged and faded, like someone tried to hide them, to erase them, like ink bleeding on wet paper. All except one name, clear as day, Julian Reese. I'm looking at it right now, in the old book. My own name, written in the old faded ink. A name from a long time ago, almost 100 years. It's my name, but it's not my handwriting. It's my name, but it's not my time. My hand trembled as I touched the page. It felt cold, like the thing's finger. I don't know who I am anymore, not really. My mind feels fuzzy, like parts are missing, like pieces of a puzzle are just gone, like someone took a chunk of my brain and replaced it with something else, something cold and empty. But I do know one thing, with a cold certainty, a certainty that chills me to the bone. Physics can't save you, not from this, not from what lives between the rules, in the cracks, not from what waits in the dark, watching, not from what wrote the rules in the first place. And every time I solve another math problem, every time I write an equation on the board, I hear it laughing, a soft, low sound, just in my head, like a whisper in my ear, but it's always there, always laughing at me. It's the sound of something ancient, something vast. It knows my secrets, my fears. It knows what I am now. And sometimes, when I look in the mirror, my eyes look like deep holes, just for a second, like pits where the light has died, black and endless, just like its eyes. And I wonder, how much of me is left? How much of Julian Reese is still here? Or am I just a gate now? A doorway for something else? Something that defies all rules? Something that laughs at physics? I try to sleep, but the laughter comes. It echoes in the dark, endless. I see the cracks in the air. I see the impossible colors. I feel the cold, burning touch. I remember the table, the old stone. My soul, a fragile letter, handed over, a terrible trade. And the faces of the teachers, their twisted smiles, their glowing eyes. They knew. They were part of it. They were never really teachers. They were just waiting for me. All those 13 years. They were just waiting for the right time, for the right gate. And now, I am that gate. I feel it deep inside me. A constant hum, like the atrium. A low vibration, always there. It's part of me now, part of my blood. I try to teach, to go on with my life. But the numbers on the board blur. The equations don't make sense anymore. They feel like lies, like a game. A game played by something ancient, something that doesn't care about rules. Or maybe it makes its own rules. And I'm just a pawn in its game, a constant, but not in the way I thought. A constant of terror, forever.